Just go lick some salt. The noise fades into the distance. In front of me sits a large mound of salt. How did it come to this? What exactly is this about? When I ask while staring at the salt, Alex clicks his tongue softly. Shut up. I never gave you permission to speak. As I freeze, unable to utter a word, the other employees around us erupt into laughter, filling the room with a wave of hilarity. I knew immediately that this was harassment. I had heard about Alex, the head of this department. The rumors say he graduated at the top of his class from one of the most prestigious universities that everyone knows. He's now the head of the IT division at the main office and, at 59, is set to retire next year. He doesn't look his age, exuding such an overwhelming aura that I couldn't say a word. All I could do was stare at the mountain of salt in front of me. My name is Mark. I turned 50 this year. Here, I'm faced with a big decision. The main office, Sitting in the courtyard of a regional hospital, I mumbled to myself. The person on the phone had congratulated me, calling it a big promotion. Born and raised in the countryside, I spent 5 years at a technical school and 2 more years in an advanced program. Before joining a major company's branch office at 22, I steadily built up my achievements, climbing the ladder to some degree. But now, I was being asked if I'd consider working at the main office. I wasn't particularly interested. I have a loving wife, and our only daughter had just graduated high school and started her first year as a working adult. I don't want much, and I only hope to live a peaceful life with my wife. If I move to the main office, I can't commute from here. It would mean living apart from my family or bringing my wife along. But my wife is currently battling an illness and finds it hard to go out. Of course, in Tokyo, where the main office is, there are plenty of hospitals and doctors. I could easily get a referral to someone who could care for her. Still, moving and transferring hospitals would place a heavy burden on her. When I returned to the hospital room after the call, I saw my wife staring at the curtain fluttering in the wind, probably listening to music through her earphones. My face must have been a mess with all my difficult thoughts because she smiled at me with her usual radiant expression and said, "Chase your dreams." I hadn't said a word yet, but of course, after more than 20 years together, she already knew. I smiled awkwardly, my eyebrows furrowing into a shape of helplessness. I decided to enter this industry back in my 3rd year of technical school. Back then, I had been torn between dropping out to go to university or entering the workforce. I couldn't see any possibilities for my future. I had chosen technical school over a regular high school simply because of its strong job placement rates, a decision I regretted. But in the final hour, I met someone who changed my perspective. That encounter motivated me to push through for 2 more years and finish the advanced program. Yeah. I guess I was lucky to fit so well into the IT industry and make it this far. You think I gave up on success for you? Well, that's not true. It's half right and half wrong. I might seem like a man without ambition now, but when I was younger, I burned with a desire to climb the ladder and earn a position at the main office. But when I married my wife and our daughter was born, I began to value long-term stability over career advancement. A life surrounded by convenient things in Tokyo would be nice, sure. But I wanted my daughter to grow up in a natural environment and enjoy a real childhood. For that reason alone, I stepped off the fast track. But I have no regrets. My daughter grew into a straight-laced young woman, and although my wife fell ill, I've been able to be by her side to care for her. What more could I ask for? That's why this opportunity has me so conflicted. Sure, at this point in my life, I can make my own decisions. Working at the main office wouldn't be so bad. But still, I'll always put you before my job. This is what I truly felt. What meaning was there in rising up the ranks now? As I mulled it over, my wife gently wrapped her hands around mine. She told me not to worry about her and to do what I wanted to do. What I wanted most was simply to be with her. And yet, deep down, There was still a flicker of that ambition. A part of me still longed to aim higher, to reach for something more. All right, I'll tell the director, Mr. Smith, that I'll consider it positively. Just give me a little more time to think. As I said this, the doctor and nurse entered the room. My wife had to be moved for a scheduled test. Please take care of my wife. With those parting words, I picked up my bag and left the room. The days were growing shorter in winter. Even though it had been warm during the day, the atmosphere grew unstable, and by evening, the cold air had swept in, dropping the temperature sharply. My visible breath reminded me that winter had arrived. I shivered, and as I did, my phone buzzed in my pocket. My daughter's name appeared on the screen. "What's up?" "Oh, we're having hot pot tonight?" "That's great." "What? No meat?" Alright, I'll pick some up." "You get the vegetables ready." I hung up and ducked into a nearby store, seeking both warmth and the missing ingredients. The supermarket was cool but not uncomfortably cold. I instinctively reached for lean meat but then tossed some marbled beef into the basket as well. And of course, hot pot calls for beer. I'd heard that canned beer these days could rival a freshly poured draft. I rarely drink, but since my daughter was preparing the meal, it seemed fitting to indulge. I found myself smiling naturally as I filled the basket, paid for my items, and headed home. I felt the moments of happiness. For me, they were more than enough to feel fulfilled. Maybe I should never have accepted the transfer to the main office. That thought crossed my mind as I encountered an event that made me realize it. Just go lick some salt. The noise around me faded into the distance. In front of me sat a large mound of salt. How had it come to this? As I closed my eyes, memories from a few days ago resurfaced. The day after sharing hot pot and beers with my daughter, I called Mr. Smith to accept the transfer. Mr. Smith immediately began making arrangements and told me to attend a networking event the next day. It felt as though they had already planned on convincing me, even if I declined. Since I accepted, it didn't matter anymore. Fine, I'll attend the event. But my wife is unwell, so I'd like to delay my transfer a little and work remotely for now, if possible. Mr. Smith agreed without hesitation and moved forward with preparations. Only a handful of employees had ever been transferred from this branch to the main office. Mr. Smith knew that I had once chosen to stay here rather than pursue promotions. That's likely why he was so determined for me to accept this opportunity. There was nothing particularly bad about the offer. If not for my wife's illness, I probably would have accepted without hesitation. And so, things progressed quickly, and before I knew it, the day of the networking event had arrived. Just before the event, I came face to face with someone. It was Alex, the man who placed the mound of salt in front of me and told me to lick it. "So you're Mark, the guy transferring here from the branch?" "I've told them I don't need subordinates." "What's the deal with this?" "Listen up. I don't need you. Don't show up to the networking event, got it?" He had warned me, but pulling out at the last minute would have caused more problems than it solved. I didn't give it much thought and attended anyway, and this is where it got me. What exactly is this about? As I stared at the salt mound in front of me and asked, Alex clicked his tongue softly. "Shut up. I never said you could speak." I froze, unable to utter another word. The employees around us burst into laughter, the room erupting into a chorus of mockery. I knew immediately that this was harassment. I had heard about Alex before. Rumor had it he graduated at the top of his class from a prestigious university everyone knew. He's now the head of the IT division at the main office and, at 59, is set to retire next year. The sheer authority he exuded was enough to make me shrink in silence, unable to do anything but stare at the ridiculous pile of salt. After a moment, Alex let out a heavy sigh. "See? I warned you. You brought this on yourself. There's an open seat over there. Go sit there. Stay out of my sight." When I followed his pointed finger, I noticed a single empty seat across the room. For a moment, I thought I saw some of the employees, those who had just been laughing at me, glare sharply at Alex. Maybe it was my imagination. Deciding it would be pointless to escalate the situation, I quietly moved to the other seat. The rest of the networking event proceeded without further incident, and it ended without much more fuss. On my way out, I stopped at a convenience store near the venue to grab some stomach medicine. That's when I overheard a conversation coming from a dimly lit smoking area nearby. I hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but the voices carried. Man, I didn't think he'd actually say something like that. Acting all high and mighty just because he got promoted from a branch office. Did you see his face when he saw that mound of salt? Priceless. It was one of the employees who had mocked me earlier. And the person he was speaking to was Alex. Don't get carried away. From their tone, it became clear that Alex and this man were working together, or so it seemed at first. Maybe they were old friends or colleagues of the same rank. I was ready to leave, frustrated by their petty conversation, when suddenly the atmosphere turned tense. Don't get carried away? You were enjoying it too. The mood suddenly turned tense. If Alex had been the ringleader of the salt incident, they wouldn't be having this argument now. If anything, they'd be laughing about it together. Instead, it seemed like the employee was the only one enjoying the situation. Alex, unfazed, spoke in his usual disinterested tone. If you have time to pull childish stunts like that, you should have spent it on something useful. I only covered for you. Normally, I wouldn't have bothered, but I had to intervene because I knew about it in advance. What was he talking about? Covered for him? Knew about it? Left unchecked? I started listening to them in the middle of the conversation and had no idea what they were talking about. Whatever had happened, it wasn't as simple as him scheming to humiliate me. Shh. Fine. I thought you were on the same page as me, but clearly, I was wrong. You're always acting so smug, so above it all, it's infuriating. With that, the male employee stubbed out his cigarette in the ashtray and turned sharply on his heel. As he exited the smoking area, his eyes landed on me. His expression darkened even further, twisting into something even more hostile. Eavesdropping, huh? What a classy hobby. A nobody like you doesn't deserve to be promoted to the main office. I won't accept it. With that, he bumped his shoulder into mine as he passed and stormed off. Having apparently heard the conversation, Alex also emerged from the smoking area. The faint smell of cigarette lingered on him, but it didn't come through in his breath, as if he hadn't been smoking himself. I told you, didn't I? There's no point in attending these networking events. The main office is far uglier than you realize. Filled with more petty rivalries than you can imagine. I heard you'll be working under me, but staying at the branch office and working remotely. Retire there. I don't want to see you here. With those parting words, Alex walked off in the opposite direction, disappearing into the night. The next day. Why are you here? Alex didn't bother to hide his irritation as I stood before him, unbothered by the dark aura surrounding him. Well, actually, I couldn't get a flight home. So, I'll be working here today. The executive director also asked me to accompany you to your business meeting. I look forward to working with you, Alex. As Alex stepped left to get past me, I mirrored his movement. He stepped right. I stepped right. It was like a comedy skit. After a few more rounds of this, Alex finally let out an exasperated sigh. Even if I told you not to come, you wouldn't disobey a directive from the executive director. I hear you held a manager role at the age of 50 back at the branch. If that's the case, you should already understand how to handle yourself. You may have turned your back on further promotions and settled at that level, but you still know how to act. Don't do anything unnecessary. Understood? That's the condition for letting you tag along. I understand. Realizing I wouldn't back down no matter what he said, Alex let out yet another heavy sigh, one of many that day. We got into the company car. When I slid into the driver's seat without hesitation, he blinked in surprise. What was so shocking about this? Something wrong? Alex shook his head slightly. No, it's just. I usually travel alone, so I'm never in the passenger seat. It feels odd, that's all. Once I confirmed he had buckled his seatbelt, I slowly started the car. As expected of Tokyo, the roads were complex, and the sheer number of lanes had me flustered. This is why I suggested I drive. Well, whatever. Consider it part of your education. Up ahead, once you cross that bridge, this lane will only turn left. You're going straight, so merge into the right lane when you see the chance. His directions and guidance were spot on. And thanks to him, we managed to arrive safely at the client company's parking lot. At first, I thought Alex was inscrutable, but I realized he was surprisingly attentive. He wasn't careless or apathetic, but he was a serious and meticulous person. And that only made the incident with the mound of salt feel stranger to me. Yes, Alex had told me to lick the salt. But I couldn't help but feel I'm missing something. Something didn't add up. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing a piece of the puzzle. After checking in at reception, we were led to a conference room where we waited. Soon, a representative from the client company appeared. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened in surprise. We stared at each other in silence for several seconds before he broke into a big smile and exclaimed, "It's been a long time, Mark. I heard someone was accompanying Alex today, but I didn't expect it to be you." Ah, now it all makes sense. The young man, probably in his early 30s, bowed his head hesitantly. Without missing a beat, I responded, "Let's just cancel the $154 billion deal." "Huh? What?" Alex sputtered, turning pale. The young man blinked, startled at my blunt declaration, before suddenly chuckling. "That look on your face is always the same when you're joking. Ah, you caught me." Considering what Alex had put me through, I couldn't resist a little payback. As Alex looked completely out of the loop, the client representative began explaining. "You see, Mark here has helped me out quite a bit in the past. I've heard all about him. If Mark is involved, then we're happy to sign the deal." "What?" Alex muttered, clearly stunned by the rapid turn of events. He turned to me, clearly demanding an explanation. "Well, we're both alumni from the same technical school. I visited the school as an alumnus a few times, and we were in the same department. So we're somewhat acquainted." Alex seemed to ponder this for a moment before nodding. "I see. Since we've already explained the details in previous meetings, shall we skip the formalities?" "Of course. In fact, we were going to let you know today that we're prepared to move forward with the contract." From there, the negotiation progressed smoothly. Still, even as everything wrapped up, Alex's expression remained unusually stern. Once we returned to the company car and settled in, Alex spoke the moment the doors shut. "This doesn't make any sense. That company had been torn between signing with us and our rival. And yet, the moment they saw you, their attitude completely flipped. It's clearly thanks to the connections and accomplishments you've built up since your school days. But listen closely, this success is mine, not yours. That's only natural. After all, I had simply accompanied him today. It's only natural that all the credit goes to Alex, I thought. After all, he was the one who had led all those discussions. I wasn't particularly bothered by it, but I couldn't figure out why he had made such a pointed comment. That uncertainty gnawed at me as I returned to the office. 2 months passed quickly. I kept asking myself the same questions over and over after coming home. Was it really okay for me to accept the transfer to the main office? If I did, it would mean leaving my wife behind. With those unsettled thoughts swirling in my mind, I visited the hospital where my wife was staying. As always, she seemed to understand exactly what I was thinking. "If you think you can do it, don't miss this chance," she said. Our daughter was there, too. She told me that until I got settled, she would take care of everything related to her mother's hospital stay. She had just turned 19 and was in her first year as a working adult. I didn't want to burden her, but seeing how responsible she had become and knowing my wife's wishes, I realized it was time to trust them. Finally, I made my decision. I've decided to take the position at the main office. It's going to cause some inconvenience for a while, but once things calm down, we'll re-evaluate the situation. Until then, I'll be living alone for a bit. Please bear with me. I felt so guilty, but the encouragement from my wife and daughter gave me the resolve I needed to move forward. At 50, it's still too early to give up. 3 months after that company networking event, I officially received notice of my transfer to the main office. And as expected, Alex was now my boss. I hadn't heard anything from you, so I thought you'd decided to stay at the branch office. But here you are, back for more. Well, whatever. I'm too busy to babysit you. Find your own work and handle it as you see fit. Alex's words were sharp and cold, but his actions told a different story. He fulfilled his responsibilities as a manager with care. The tasks he assigned were always within my capacity. And he chose work that aligned with my experience. For someone so capable, it was strange that I was his only subordinate at the moment. One evening, as I was heading home, I realized I'd forgotten something at the office. It was already October, yet the lingering summer heat was oppressive, and the asphalt still radiated warmth as I walked back to the company. Wiping the sweat from my forehead, I returned to the office and found someone still working alone in the department. It was Alex. "Good evening." When I called out to him, his shoulders jolted slightly, as if startled. But the moment he realized it was me, he let out an exaggerated sigh. "Oh, it's just you, Mark." That was all he said before turning back to his computer. At first glance, it seemed like an ordinary scene, but it was already past office hours, and Alex didn't get paid for overtime. In a small and medium-sized company, it might be a different story, but ours was a major corporation. As the head of the department, his position came with a hefty salary allowance, which meant no extra pay for staying late. So there was nothing for him to gain by working alone like this. What could he be so focused on? Just as I was wondering, Alex stretched and mumbled under his breath, almost as if talking to himself. "You're the only one foolish enough to stick around. You know that, right? I'm not exactly popular. Being around me won't do you any favors. So you'd be better off keeping your distance." Before I could respond, he stood up without waiting for an answer. After shutting down his computer, he gestured for me to follow, as if to say, "Come on." Without a word, I trailed behind Alex, watching his back as he walked. The brightly lit hallway stretched ahead, in stark contrast to the dim city streets visible through the windows. We stopped at the new vending machine the company had just installed, and he asked me what I wanted to drink. "I'll take a black coffee." "You're not one to hold back, are you? But you're probably the only one who talks to me like this anymore." "I don't hate it, though. Here you go." The canned coffee clattered down, and Alex handed it to me. For someone who always wore such a stern expression, there was a surprising softness to his face that night. "Thank you." The cold coffee soothed me, spreading a refreshing coolness through my body. I'd never liked black coffee much when I was younger, but it had grown on me with age. While I was thinking about that, Alex bought himself a bottle of water and drank it. His gaze fixed on the vending machine, and then, as if continuing our earlier conversation, he quietly murmured, almost to himself, "You won't believe this, but everyone who works under me ends up failing. I'm not superstitious, but sometimes I wonder if I'm cursed. Maybe I should go get a purification ritual or something." Caught off guard by his unexpected comment, I froze, unsure of how to respond. Unbothered by my reaction, Alex continued speaking. It wasn't always like this, you know. Back then, I had good subordinates, so good you wouldn't believe it looking at me now. But eventually, all of them drifted away, triggered by something or another. Most of them now work at regional branches or small offices. Because of me, they were pushed off the fast track. That's why I'm certain you'll break at some point too. A self-deprecating smile crossed his face. What exactly had he gone through to reach his current position? Competition for promotions exists in the branch offices as well, but it's nothing compared to what happens at the main office. I recalled something Alex had said to me not long ago. The main office is a place overflowing with darker, more toxic emotions than you can imagine. He must have fought and clawed his way through that murky, cutthroat environment, believing in his path and pushing forward until he finally reached the position of division head. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel that he had lost a great deal along the way. Isn't that just how promotions work, though? When someone moves up, someone else inevitably gets left behind. You earned this position because you deserved it. Isn't that right? But Alex shook his head, denying my words. Did I do things that earned me resentment? Yeah, probably. To get this far, I had to outmaneuver my peers and win. That's the truth. But you're different from me. You have people to protect, and I don't think you'd ever pull the reckless stunts I did. It's true that I have a responsibility to protect my wife and daughter. Even though my daughter has become independent, she is still my child, and that will never change. That was exactly why Alex feared having me work under him. About that incident at the networking event, I never properly apologized. You won't believe me now, but I only found out about the salt prank just before it happened. Someone told me that Guy was planning something stupid to mess with you. But the problem was, he's technically my subordinate, so I had to think carefully about how to handle it as his boss. Of course, he could have just reprimanded the guy on the spot. That would have been the easiest solution. But instead, Alex had tried to manage the situation quietly, covering for his subordinate while minimizing the impact on me. The whole lick the salt comment had just slipped out, apparently without much thought. But still, it's a fact that I hurt you. I figured if I made things hard for you, you'd hate me enough to go back to the branch office. I was trying to keep my distance from you, but here you are, stubbornly sticking around. Surprisingly, he smiled. Not his usual sharp, cynical grin, but something softer. That's ridiculous. When I said, half joking, Alex let out a quiet laugh, I think so too. After a brief silence, he sighed and finally explained why he'd been working late. The recent negotiation went well. I kept the credit under my name because I didn't want you to become a target for harassment again. But you seem capable enough now. Pausing for a moment, Alex handed me a small slip of paper. On it were the names of several employees, presumably for the project. The client specifically requested you as the project leader. You know them, don't you? I'm getting older. It's time for me to step back and let the next generation take over. I'll make sure management knows you were the key to the success of that deal. These are the project team members. Lead them well and show them what you can do. With that, Alex took another sip of water and, saying he still had work to do, headed back to the office. The next day, the project team was officially announced. At first, some team members grumbled about me being appointed leader. But as they watched me work, the complaints eventually died down. Having been entrusted with this role by Alex, I felt a sense of duty to give it my all. The project began smoothly, but then a major problem struck. Unauthorized system access leading to a data leak? According to the report from upper management, someone had attempted to infiltrate our system externally. They had accessed logs containing confidential project information, throwing the entire company into chaos. Naturally, the project was immediately frozen, and an emergency meeting was called. As the project leader, I attended, and that's when I learned the shocking truth. The unauthorized access had come from Alex's computer and account. The exact cause remained unclear. But it seemed that Alex's account had been used as a stepping stone to access the core of the system and extract sensitive information. Naturally, the client was furious about the situation. The person I'd reconnected with during the negotiation called me, sounding apologetic and overwhelmed as he tried to get a handle on the details. Nothing concrete had been decided yet, but the project was on the verge of being cancelled. If that happened, it would result in far more than just significant losses. It would be catastrophic. If Alex wasn't at fault, that would have been one thing. But the logs showed that his account password had been overly simplistic, making it easy to crack. The records also revealed that his computer had been left running, unattended, during certain times. Impossible. That was the first thought that struck me. Alex always shut down his computer whenever he left his desk. Alex had always been strict about account management. He had warned me more than once. I've had subordinates in the past who fell victim to unauthorized access. One guy even used his wife's name and birthday as his password. Don't ever do something like that, got it? And more importantly, Alex was the head of the IT division, an IT specialist, through and through. The upper management seemed just as baffled by the situation. They couldn't believe Alex would make such an amateur mistake. But with the logs pointing to his account, there was no way for Alex to escape disciplinary action. Even in this crisis, Alex remained calm. See what I mean? Anyone under me never ends up well. Up until now, it's always been my subordinates who got into trouble. I guess it's finally my turn. Honestly, the fact that I've come this far without a slip-up was unnatural. I've got nothing to lose. If they hit me with damages, I'll pay it off with my retirement funds and quit. I was close to retirement anyway. Alex muttered those words quietly, almost to himself. Watching him, I couldn't shake the feeling that this situation had been orchestrated. Something didn't add up. Time was running out. If I didn't act quickly, both the project and Alex's fate would be decided before I had a chance to stop it. In that moment of urgency, I unexpectedly crossed paths with someone. Oh, you're still hanging around Alex, huh? Even after what happened at the networking event? You're quite the loyal one. But it's over for him now. What a shame. The man sneered as he brushed past me, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Could it be? If my suspicions were correct, time was of the essence and any delay would only make things worse. Realizing I couldn't waste another second, I spun on my heel. I headed straight for my desk. Ignoring the company-issued laptop, I pulled out my personal computer, the one I always carried with me, and powered it up. This incident, no, everything that had been happening around Alex was connected. I was certain of it. Focused and determined, I stared at my screen and started digging. What are you doing? The voice startled me. I looked up to find Alex standing over me. It seemed lunchtime was over, and employees were filing back into the office. Despite being at the center of this mess, Alex looked oddly composed. Or maybe he'd just given up entirely. Alex had carried so much on his shoulders, fighting his way through countless battles. In the process, he had lost so much, yet he never looked back, and he just kept moving forward. There was no way I could let him fall so easily here. I clenched my fists tightly and took a deep breath. Without answering Alex's question, I continued typing furiously, my focus unwavering. Perhaps it was my intensity, but before long, a crowd began to gather around me, watching silently. All right, everyone, back to your work. But at that exact moment, I shot up from my seat. I've found it. What is it? I had finally uncovered the truth. The logs being used as evidence had been falsified through highly sophisticated techniques. Look at this. Ordinarily, when a log is modified, the system keeps a record of the date and details of the change. However, in this case, traces of that record being erased still remain. Everything else was wiped clean, which means this was likely a careless mistake by the culprit. And from there, the trail became clear. The unauthorized access didn't come from outside. It came from within the company. While it's true that the division head's account was accessed, the IP address of the device used shows that it originated from inside the office. In other words, the culprit is one of us. If we trace this IP address, we'll find out who's responsible. At my words, the room filled with gasps of disbelief from employees who clearly didn't understand what was happening. Even Alex looked stunned. His expression uncharacteristically frozen as he stared at the suspicious IP address and the falsified logs displayed on the screen. I couldn't figure it out on my own, so I looked into it too, but I couldn't find anything. I thought whoever did this was simply more skilled than me. And when the evidence is so clear, there's no fighting it. But I never imagined. It was now clear that Alex had been framed, deliberately set up by someone. And I knew exactly who would be unhappy with this revelation. This is nonsense. Mark's making this up. The voice came from a man I recognized immediately, the same one who had sneered at me earlier. The same one who had been antagonistic toward me from the start. He was visibly shaken, his fists trembling slightly as he tried to compose himself. And then, almost instinctively, he began to hurriedly shut down his laptop, as if trying to hide something. Alex didn't miss a beat. Wait. What did you just hide? Bringing personal computers into this room requires explicit approval. Mark submitted a request beforehand. So that's fine. This is the IT division, after all. We manage the backbone of the company's security. Now hand over whatever you just hid. The office instantly erupted in murmurs. We are assigned to the security division within the IT headquarters department. Although we also handle sales, which sometimes causes people to mistake us for salespersons. Our primary responsibilities are system development and security management. Because of this, bringing unauthorized devices into the department is strictly prohibited. Even company-issued laptops cannot be brought into this room without prior approval. You realize that your actions are as good as an admission of guilt. Now hand it over. At Alex's sharp order, the man hesitated, his expression contorted with frustration, but eventually, he surrendered the laptop. The IP address confirmed it. The device matched the one that had accessed Alex's account. Given the circumstances, there was no doubt now. He was the culprit. You had to falsify logs with some pretty impressive skills. Why misuse such talent for this? Because of Alex, my career was ruined. The man's angry shout cut over my words. It was clear he held a deep grudge against Alex. The employees who had mocked me before seemed to share his sentiments, having followed this man's lead. Blaming Alex for his own lack of success, he lashed out with completely self-centered anger. I knew I wouldn't get his position even after he retired. So I decided to strike first, pull him down, and make him leave in disgrace. It was nothing but petty, twisted jealousy. The entire room fell into stunned silence, the tension so thick it was suffocating. Yet the man carried on, a crazed smile spreading across his face. Everyone knows what a lousy boss Alex is. He's a disgrace as a manager. He doesn't deserve to be here. His words were sharp, but I knew the truth. Alex had told me himself about his subordinates being transferred one after another and about how he had been resented during the cutthroat race for promotions. It's inevitable for someone in a leadership role to become a target for such negative emotions. But I know the truth. Alex may believe he brought the resentment upon himself. But he's also the one who stayed late without overtime pay to organize work for newcomers and who took the most earnest approach to training the next generation. And now I realized something else. It was this man who had been pulling the strings, turning those who respected Alex against him, and pushing for their transfers out of spite. You're just aware of your own incompetence, aren't you? What? Even if Alex retires, there's no way you'd ever get his position. Deep down, you know that. And that realization, that you're not good enough, only fueled your resentment. That's why you resorted to this, didn't you? He didn't say a word. His face flushed red with anger, his teeth grinding audibly as he looked down in frustration, unable to deny the truth. This was it. The moment to reveal my hand. Your skills were impressive, but they weren't good enough to beat me. Do you want to know why? There is a reason why I was content with my position as a section manager at the branch office. I stepped forward, pulling a business card from my pocket and handing it to him. His face contorted in shock as he read it, then went pale. His knees buckled, and he sank to the floor. The Internal Audit Division. Director. What? The entire room erupted into shocked murmurs. Clearly, no one had expected me to hold such a critical position within the company. I always felt the importance and allure of being in a leadership position. Yet, being part of internal audit meant working behind the scenes, often in roles that invited resentment. No one wanted the job, and it was precisely when I had stepped away from the promotion race that the company president personally offered it to me. Right now, I've entrusted the core responsibilities to a trusted subordinate, who has taken over much of my original role. In truth, I'm just a figurehead as the head of internal audit, and my real position is as Alex's subordinate. But this time, I'm glad I was able to use my experience to prove Alex's innocence. At that moment, the culprit slumped to the floor, defeated. Before long, word reached the president and executives, and the offending employee was taken away. It was officially announced that there had been no data leak, only unauthorized access, and falsified logs orchestrated to frame Alex. A few months passed. The project resumed without issue and was now performing well, steadily increasing sales. During that time, I delivered a message to Alex from several people. They were grateful to you, you know. Back when they were backed into a corner. You were the only one who relentlessly defended their innocence to upper management. They didn't want to be a burden to you, so they chose to step aside on their own. In the end, moving to regional offices gave them peace of mind. Some got married, others had children. And none of them regret their decision. As for the transfers of Alex's subordinates, it turned out that the same man had been behind it. Jealous of Alex for having loyal and talented team members while he had none, he schemed to drive them away out of spite. Once the facts were revealed, the company issued an apology to the employees who had been wrongfully transferred. They were even offered positions back at the main office, but they all declined. When I visited them, they all had the same message. It was "Give our regards to Alex." Hearing this, Alex pulled out a handkerchief and quietly dabbed at his eyes. When he asked me why I had helped him, I told him a story from my past. When I was still a student, back in my third year, an external lecturer gave a talk. He said, "Your skills aren't just for yourself, but they can influence those around you. The most important thing is to use your abilities wisely." His words stayed with me. It was a small thing, but it made me reevaluate my career path and my life. That lecturer had been an IT specialist and an excellent salesperson. At the time, I was thinking of leaving my information engineering program. But at the end of his talk, he said, "The first step to success is finding what you're good at and developing it." I couldn't forget those words. So I stuck with security as my specialty and ended up where I am today. I smiled as I finished, and Alex looked at me, his eyes wide with surprise. "I never doubted you. The look in your eyes hasn't changed since back then." I knew there had to be more to this situation, and I was right. The person who inspired my path in life then and now hasn't changed a bit. At that, Alex rubbed his nose, clearly embarrassed. Shortly after, Alex retired, leaving the company amid genuine regret from his peers. Now, he spends his time visiting his former subordinates and reconnecting with them, enjoying a peaceful and well-earned retirement. As for me, perhaps it's time I started a new chapter of my life as well. With the dust settled, my wife finally recovered from her illness, and my daughter, cradling her newborn baby, brought new joy into our lives. At last, I've become a grandfather. My name is Thomas. I'm a 30-year-old office worker, but I'm also the son of Harris, the boss of Japanese mafia, the King clan. Technically, since my father is the leader of the organization, I might be expected to follow in his footsteps and become a mafia myself. However, I've been a coward ever since I was a kid and have never even been in a fight. If I were to become a mafia, I'd probably just end up getting hurt and being completely useless. That's why I decided to live as an office worker instead. No one, not even my company, knows that my family is connected to the mafia. I live my life as an ordinary person, just like everyone else. One day, my coworker Michael invited me out for drinks. Michael is the kind of coworker I get along well with, so I happily agreed. We ended up going to a bar. The place had a calm atmosphere with soft music playing in the background, welcoming even a plain guy like me. I didn't know there was a place like this around here. Yeah, me neither. It's got a nice, relaxed vibe. We had a great time chatting about work and hobbies, but eventually decided it was time to leave. That's when the manager handed us the bill. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the number. $20,000? What? What are you talking about? Are you drunk? No, I'm serious. I started counting the zeros to make sure. 1, 10, 100, it's definitely $20,000. Come on, that's impossible. Let me see it. Michael snatched the receipt from my hands and, just like me, began counting the zeros. But as he finished counting, he fell completely silent. See? It's $20,000, right? Yeah. That amount was enough to sober us up immediately. Still, there had to be some mistake. We had only ordered 2 glasses of whiskey each. If the total was $20,000, that meant each glass cost $5,000. There's no way this is right. Let's ask the manager. Yeah, good idea. Excuse me, sir. Yes, how can I help you? The manager, polishing a glass with a white cloth, turned toward us. This bill. Yes? There must be some kind of mistake, don't you think? Mistake? What do you mean? Well, it looks like it says $20,000. That's correct. What? The manager confirmed it without a hint of shame or guilt. This couldn't be right. Why does it cost $20,000? You drank whiskey, didn't you? Well, yes, but that's why. The manager said this without a hint of emotion, but this was not the kind of situation where I could simply reply, "Oh, I see." Hey, this is ridiculous, right? Of course it is. There's no way this can be allowed. Can you say something? Yeah. Excuse me. Yes, how can I help you? I can't agree with this amount. Michael said timidly. For context, Michael has never been in a fight in his life. Back in school, he was called a socially awkward nerd, and it was common knowledge that he was a geek. Even now, he might still be one. As for me, I'm the same. I'm just a socially awkward guy. Even though my family is mafia, I hate fighting, and getting punched terrifies me. So, here we were, 2 timid guys who had wandered into this mess. Whether you agree or not is up to you, but this is our price. But, it's not written on the menu, is it? What isn't? The price. If we knew it was $5,000 per glass, we wouldn't have ordered it. Sir, take another look at the menu. We looked over the menu again, but there was no mention of such a price anywhere. I still don't see it. Right here, here. What he showed us was an almost invisible line of tiny text, so small you'd need a magnifying glass to read it. It looked more like a speck of dirt than actual writing. And instead of using numbers, the price was written in letters. Who the hell would even notice that? I wanted to scream, but fear kept me silent. This, is it? Yes, there it is. You see it, don't you? In letters? Yes, exactly. But no one would understand that. Whether it's written out in words or not, that's our choice. The problem is your assumption that prices must be written in numbers. There's no law that says that, you know. He was actually bringing up the law. True, I'd never heard of such a law. But this was clearly an intentional attempt to hide the price. But it's unreadable, and in such tiny text. Sounds like you have bad eyesight. I can read it just fine. He claimed he could read it, but there was no way that was true. The bar was dimly lit, with only an orange spotlight shining over the counter, making it absolutely impossible to read such tiny text. So this is what they call a rip-off bar. Yeah, I saw a news story about places like this popping up in Kabukicho. I guess they're here too. Right, I saw that report too. Excuse me, gentlemen, let's not talk about the news. Just hurry up and pay. The longer you wait, the higher the bill gets. What? Why? We haven't ordered anything else. You're still sitting here, aren't you? You're using the space, so naturally, there's a charge. Wait, are you saying the $20,000 includes a seating fee? Exactly. If you sit here for more than 10 minutes without ordering, an additional $1,000 per minute is added. I don't mind if you stay as long as you like, but for your sake, I'd recommend against it. It seems like you don't understand our system. This was the first I'd ever heard of such a thing. Charging $1,000 for just 10 minutes? That's $100 per minute. That's insane. So, just go ahead and pay the $20,000, okay? There's no way I have $20,000 on me. You think saying that will get you off the hook? That's quite a joke, sir. I really don't have it. There's no way I could come up with $20,000. This is way too much of a ripoff. Exactly, it's way beyond what anyone could afford. Beyond what you can afford? Why is that? If you don't have it on you, you can just withdraw it. There's a convenience store right around the corner. Even if I go to the store, there's not that amount in my bank account, so it's impossible. I see. Well then, there's a consumer finance company just down the street. You could borrow from them. What? Michael and I exchanged uneasy glances. Borrowing money from a loan shark just to pay off a scam? That was unthinkable. And if we did borrow from them, the interest would crush us. You drank the whiskey, didn't you? You've got to pay up. We can't just let you leave without paying. What exactly do you mean by that? You know what I mean. Do you? No, I don't. What are you getting at? The police? If that's the case, it might actually be better for us. Police? Are you kidding me? Listen up, our bar has mafia backing us up. If you don't pay, the mafia will step in. Wait, mafia? That's right. You get it now? That's a little. Then pay up, now. That's also a little. You two are such a hassle. The manager muttered as he reached for a nearby bell and gave it a ring. Moments later, two massive mafia men emerged from the back of the bar. What's this? You're not paying? No, it's not that we're refusing to pay. We'll pay if it's a fair price. This is a fair price. $20,000 doesn't seem fair to me. That's just your opinion. For us, this is perfectly fair. Now, pay up. But we just don't have it. Looks like you won't understand until you get hurt. Before we could even plead for mercy, they pounced on us, landing blow after blow. Bring the $20,000. Call your parents. One of them shoved my phone into my hand. Wait, you really want me to call my parents? For a brief moment, I thought I was saved. But then it hit me. What would happen if my father actually showed up? Michael would find out about my true background. This was a serious problem. I desperately wanted to call my father for help, but if Michael discovered the truth, it could lead to the worst-case scenario, my secret getting out to the company. That could even mean losing my job. What should I do? If I leave it like this, things will only get worse. But if they hit us again? I steeled myself. I have no other choice. Fine, I'll call. Hurry it up. Just as I was about to dial, Michael stopped me. Don't do it. What? Why not? How old is your dad? About 58, I think. You're really going to make someone that age cough up $20,000? That's terrible. No, I wasn't planning on making him pay. I just needed him to help resolve this situation. Thomas, that's just being an ungrateful son. But I don't see any other way to handle this. You should think of another way. I know, but... Michael's point made sense. But could we afford to keep going back and forth like this? Hey! What's all the chatter about? If you don't hurry up, I'll gouge your damn eyes out. See? They're saying stuff like that. I think calling my dad is the best option right now. Listen, if you're going to call him, then hurry up and do it. If you can't pay, your dad has to. Or do you think stalling is going to make us give up? Look, I'm giving you some advice here. Just pay up. Otherwise, that $20,000 is going to become $30,000 real soon. Yeah, $20,000 is already bad enough, but $30,000? That'd be a nightmare. But maybe we could ask a friend for help? I don't have anyone I could call a friend. Neither do I. How about a girlfriend? Even less likely. Same here. What the hell is wrong with you two? Just give us a minute. Alright, but seriously, I think we've got no choice but to call our parents. But my mom's a single parent. There's no money to be had there. Don't worry, my dad will handle it. He'll take care of everything. Really? I feel bad about that. Michael apologized, bowing his head slightly. But I had already resigned myself to the fact that this would likely be the end of my friendship with him. Alright, I'm making the call. I moved to the corner of the bar and, in a low voice, called my father. Dad, I need your help. Huh? What happened? I'm at a bar, and I don't have the money to pay. There's an ATM, isn't there? It's more than what I have in my account. I see. Alright, I'll be there. Where are you? I gave him the location as he asked, and the call ended. From the sound of the TV in the background, he was probably at home. That meant he should be able to get here fairly quickly. I went back to Michael and told him he'll be here soon. Your dad's bringing the money, right? I think so. Think so? If he doesn't, are you prepared for what happens then? Yes, I guess you should be prepared for the worst. Are you stupid? I'm not the one who needs to be prepared. You two are. If your old man doesn't bring the cash, he's getting beaten to a pulp too. Beating up 2 or 3 people makes no difference to us. Honestly, it's been a while since we've had a chance to deal with some flesh and blood. This'll be fun. Yeah, you better hope your dad comes through with the money. Hey, Thomas. Are you sure this is going to be okay? It's fine, trust me. Once my dad gets here, everything will be sorted out. You're sure? There's no way your dad's going to get hurt too, right? Why are you so worried about that? Because I don't have a dad. If something happened to yours, if he got hurt because of this, I don't think I could handle the guilt. It would crush me. You're kind. Don't worry. My dad isn't the kind of man to get taken down easily. I hope so. We sat on the floor, kneeling, as we talked about these things. Exactly 7 minutes after I made the call, the door to the bar opened. My father walked in, dressed casually in everyday clothes with a jacket. He looked just like an ordinary dad. Huh? A customer? No, that's my father. Seriously? He doesn't look like he's got the money. Hey, old man. Did you bring the cash? My father, ignoring the intimidating man, sank into the sofa, crossing his legs and folding his arms. How much is it? $20,000. Time to pay up. Ha! Acting all high and mighty over such a measly sum. What did you say? We can make it $30,000 if you want. Or how about $100,000? Go ahead, name your price. Big talk, but do you even have that kind of money? You're sitting there nice and comfy, but sitting here costs $1,000 for every 10 minutes. The price is only going to go up. Is that so? Quite the pricey chair, huh? That's right. So pay up already. You're here to save your son, aren't you? Yes, I came to help him. But just saving him isn't enough. Why not have a little fun while we're at it? What the hell are you talking about? We don't have time for this. Pay up, or your son's going to suffer even more. Oh, I see. Looks like he's already been roughed up. Yeah, you got that right. When it came time to pay, he said he didn't have the money, so we gave him a little lesson. Fair enough, right? He ate and drank, after all. True enough. If you eat and drink, you should pay. Exactly. That's why I told your son to cough up the money. But what do you know? He says he doesn't have it. Well, it's not like anyone carries $20,000 around. Back in the day, people had cash on hand after payday, but now it's all direct deposits. Even with a full paycheck, it's unlikely anyone's carrying that kind of money. That's why there's an ATM. Does your account have over $20,000 in it? My account's got nothing to do with this. I see. So you assume others have money, even though you don't. That's a naive way of thinking. What did you just say? If you're going to rip people off, you've got to keep the amount within what they can actually pay. If $20,000 is impossible, then of course they won't pay. That's common sense, you fools. That's not our problem. The manager sets the prices here. The manager, huh? Who's the manager? Him. Hey, manager. With prices like these, threatening people is a waste of time. If you set the bar too high, customers won't have the money. And all you're doing is wasting your own time. You need to keep the amount reasonable, or no one will have the cash to pay on the spot. Hey, you came here to pay, not to lecture me. This is how I run my business, so stay out of it. Fair enough. But earlier, you said I should ask for $100,000, didn't you? Yeah, that's right. I'd rather get billed for that kind of amount. It'd feel more worth my while. $20,000 doesn't even motivate me to move. If you can afford $100,000, then $20,000 should be easy. True enough. Then hurry up and pay. Or do you want to get hurt too? No, I won't be the one getting hurt. You will. What did you just say? Who is this guy? Why is he so calm? Must be bluffing. Hey, stop screwing around. You're talking big, so pay up already. Who said I was going to pay? What did you just say? I never said I'd pay. You really are a bunch of idiots with no comprehension skills. Then why the hell are you here? I told you I came to save my son. Besides, it seemed like it might be fun. There was nothing interesting on TV. And I was watching it with my wife before bed. Then the call came at just the right time. What the hell are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? My mind's perfectly fine. I'd be more concerned about yours. You're spouting nonsense. Do you think you'll leave here unscathed without paying? Oh, I'll leave just fine. The question is, will you? You think you can take us on? The man stepped in front of my father, blocking his way. He was huge, radiating an intimidating presence. But my father didn't flinch. That's the boss for him. For the first time in my life, I felt grateful to have a mafia boss as a father. Growing up, having a mafia father meant being ostracized by friends or hearing their parents say, "Don't play with that kid." Never had I felt thankful for my dad's background until now. Still, why did my dad come alone? He usually has his lieutenants with him. I found it strange at first, but then it suddenly dawned on me. Well, if he was watching TV at home, of course he'd come alone. Hey, standing there like that is annoying. Move out of the way. Having a big guy like you in front of me is suffocating. What? Move. If you don't, you'll regret it. Oh yeah? How exactly will I regret it? Tell me. The man smirked, his face twisted in a mocking grin. Then, in a flash, my father's leg moved, and the giant man staggered. It seemed my father had aimed a precise kick at his legs. What the hell are you doing? That's why I told you to get out of the way. My father said, laughing as if it were amusing, casually sitting there like nothing had happened. Hey, Thomas. What? Your dad, what's up with him? What do you mean? He looks ridiculously strong. He's just used to fighting. Fighting? That's the kind of person he is? Michael turned to me with wide, astonished eyes. I could understand his reaction. Steeling myself, I decided to tell him the truth. My dad's a mafia. Wait, what? He's the boss of the King clan. You're laughing, but I've never heard about this before. Yeah, because I've never told anyone. If people knew my dad was mafia, they'd hate me, right? Yeah, I can see how that might scare people. You probably don't want to hang out with me anymore either, right? Now that you know. Actually, I'm glad your dad's mafia. He's saving us right now. Really? Well, I'm glad to hear that. As Michael and I talked, my father and the mafia in the room seemed to be getting more and more fired up. You called me here, so I hope you're ready for what's coming. What did you just say? Hey, let's call for backup. This guy's not an ordinary old man. Yeah, good idea. Once the crew gets here, we'll take him down easily. The mafia started making phone calls, but my father just watched and laughed. What's this? You can't even take down one old man without calling for backup? Shut up. It's not that we can't take you down. We just like sharing the fun with our friends. Nice excuse. However, even when their reinforcements arrived, the situation didn't change. Hey, we've been waiting for you. You've been struggling for a while. Who the hell is this guy? The reinforcements entered, but as soon as they saw my father's face, their expressions turned pale. Wait, this is the guy? Yeah, the old man's acting all high and mighty. When I thought he was going to pay, he outright refused. That's why I called you. You idiot, you shouldn't have called me. What's wrong with you? Why are you so scared? This man is Harris, the boss of the King clan. Messing with him is suicide. I'm out. Wait. Don't leave as soon as you show up. Yeah, so what if he's the king boss? He's just one guy, and there are three of us. That's true, but right now, we've got the numbers. Even the king boss can't win against three of us. We could take him down here and now. Really? We can't lose, can we? Now that you mention it, that's true. Exactly. If we take down the king boss, we might even get promoted to the higher ranks. That's right. It's ridiculous to stay at the bottom forever. True, but let's do it. Yeah, with three of us, we can win. Exactly. It seems like you've made up your minds. Yeah, sorry to keep you waiting. We've decided to take you down. Prepare yourself. Got it. Let's wrap this up quickly. I'm starting to get bored of dealing with you guys. And let me remind you, this fight started because of you. I'm not holding back. You understand that, right? Heh, who needs you to hold back? We've got three people here. The mafia planned to take down my father together, which was a cowardly move. It seemed like there was no way he could win. But when one of them lunged at him, my father swiftly kicked him, sending his massive body crashing into the table. You bastard! Hey, you're the ones who came at me. Don't act like I did something wrong. By the way, your flabby body is disgusting. You should hit the gym. What? The men stood before him but couldn't bring themselves to attack. Meanwhile, my father stood up from the sofa, cracking his fingers and neck as if signaling he was ready to get serious. If you're not coming to me, I'll come to you. Ready? Before they could react, he punched one of them square in the face, sending him flying. Another man tried to sneak behind my father to land a punch, but as if he had eyes in the back of his head. My father delivered a precise kick to his stomach. While the man was reeling, my father grabbed an ice bucket from the table and smashed it over his head. The blow was too much, and the man collapsed to the ground, clutching his head. You bastard! When another man charged in, my father smashed the ice bucket into his head and, after tossing it aside, finished him off with a powerful kick. No matter how many times the men attacked, my father showed no signs of tiring. On the contrary, he looked like he was thoroughly enjoying himself, smiling as he fought. I can't believe this, my own father is terrifying. After knocking down the three men, my father stood over their crumpled bodies on the floor. Seeing this, the manager tried to flee like a startled rabbit, but my father didn't let him escape. Catching up to him, he grabbed the manager by the collar and landed a punch to his stomach, knocking him down. You're all bark and no bite. Dad, what do you plan to do with these guys? First, we tie them up. Don't want them running away. I've got duct tape. Michael, who had somehow wandered behind the counter, returned with a roll of duct tape. Good. Tie them up with that. After wrapping them up tightly, ensuring they couldn't escape, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. Are you going to hand them over to the police? No point. Even if they go to jail, they'll just get out and do the same thing again. Then what? I'll call in the higher-ups and have them stuffed into a drum. Hearing this, the mafia began begging for their lives. Please. We're begging you. Spare us. I'd rather go to prison than lose my life. As the four men desperately pleaded, my father smirked. All right, then let's settle this with money. Money? Yeah. You tried to rip off the son of the King clan's boss. Charging me $20,000 and expecting me to pay? That's not very original. How about we add a zero to your bill? $200,000? Exactly. That's way too much. Too much? Seems like a fair price to me. Or is there a problem with that? Yes, we can't possibly pay that much. In that case, make it $2 million. What? And if that doesn't work for you, it'll go up to $20 million. Your call. No. $2 million is fine. Good. There are 4 of you, so that's $500,000 each. That doesn't sound too bad, does it? Not at all. Ha ha ha. If they argued any further, the $2 million would turn into $20 million, so they had no choice but to agree. Alright, pay up now. But we don't have it. No money? You told my son to call his parent. You've got parents, too, don't you? Sorry. Then call them. Even if we call our parents, they don't have that kind of money. I'm not talking about your parents. That'd be cruel. I'm talking about a moneylender. A moneylender, like Kevin Finance? Are you kidding? I'm with King. Even King has a financial branch. King finances a bit. Don't worry, I'll call them for you. With that, my father summoned Oliver from King Finance. Thomas, why are they so scared of King Finance? Beats me. Good question. It's because their interest rates are high. Spencer Finance charges 10% interest over 10 days. But King Finance charges 10% every 5 days. So that means $50,000 is added every 5 days? Not quite. The moment you borrow, 10% is added, so it becomes $550,000 right away. Then after 5 days, it's $605,000, and 5 days later, it's $665,500. It's a great profit, really. That's incredible. As they spoke, Oliver walked into the bar. Sorry to keep you waiting. Hey, Oliver. Sorry for calling you so late. Set up $50,000 each for these 4, and transfer the money to the clan's account. Understood. In the meantime, I'll need their signatures to finalize the loan. Oliver placed a tablet in front of the men, who shakily signed both screens as instructed. Oliver, where do we take them now? Let's see. How about sending all 4 to the Beast match? Beast match? That would end in one blow. The insurance agents would cry. True. In that case, we could use them for the survival game, or there's room in the men's quarters. Survival game, huh? Let's go with that. What's a survival game? A survival game is exactly what it sounds like. But it's not virtual or on a computer. It's real. We send them to a remote island overseas where there's no law or order. They can do whatever they want there. But they'll have to make their own weapons. Without survival skills, it'll be tough. Who could possibly enjoy something like that? Plenty of rich people around the world, watching from the safety of their homes. If you're interested, I can introduce you. No, I'm fine. That's probably for the best. Well then, boss, I'll take these 4 with me now. The 4 men, seemingly resigned to their fate, were taken away without making a fuss. Sometime later, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to revisit the bar, now reportedly under new management. There, I found a bartender in his 30s polishing glasses behind the counter. The last time I was here, I was told to pay $20,000 for just a few drinks. I was shocked. I'm sorry about that. The bartender apologized, even though he had nothing to do with it. It's not your fault. Not entirely. The bartender said with a faint smile. Actually, the previous owner was my brother. Really? Yes. He used to be a good man. He wasn't the kind of person who would run a scam like that. Then why? It was all because of money. When our mother got sick and needed surgery, my brother worked tirelessly to earn the money. But no matter how hard he worked, it wasn't enough. I worked too, but it was hopeless. That's when he came up with the idea for this bar. He figured scamming people would make quick money. I see. And your mother? Thanks to him, the surgery was a success, and she's healthy now. That's good to hear. Yes, but my brother ended up scamming mafia and hasn't returned since. Given the way the conversation was going, I couldn't bring myself to admit that was me. I stayed silent and listened to the bartender's story. Do you think he'll ever come back? I hope so. That's why I bought this bar. I thought we could run it together if he returned. I'm still holding on to that hope. The bartender continued polishing the glass meticulously as he spoke. Who would have ever imagined that the former manager had such a past? I could do nothing but silently watch the bartender's sorrowful figure. From today onward, stay out of the projects. When you get involved, we lose the contracts. Got it? Stop meddling and just stick to making documents. Watching Michael's back as he walked away, I felt the weight of my own helplessness. I work as a security consultant, protecting systems from threats. But my overly meticulous nature made me the office oddball, shoved to the corner. In short, I was the proverbial desk jockey nobody wanted to deal with. No one approached me. No one spoke to me. Days filled with whispers and pointed fingers behind my back. Isolation had become my norm. Then one day, a newly appointed female manager gave me an assignment, a business negotiation with a major food company. This client had a reputation as an impenetrable fortress, where even veteran salespeople had failed. I believe you're the right person for this. Do your best. At the meeting, I precisely identified the vulnerabilities in their system. My analytical skills stunned their corporate lead. Why has someone with your ability been stuck in the shadows? At our company, we'd offer you a package 5 times your current salary. How about it? I was headhunted with an unprecedented offer. From that moment, my life took a complete 180-degree turn. My name is Dylan. I work in the System Development Division of a security consulting firm. Our job is to create systems that protect companies from external attacks and data breaches, and to sell those solutions. From antivirus measures to preventing unauthorized access and encrypting data, we ensure system security through various methods. What makes this work fascinating is that no two systems are ever alike. Each company uses different software, manages data differently, and has unique information to protect. Standard solutions don't work here. Understanding the unique personality of each company and crafting the optimal security measures. That was the unwavering principle I was determined to uphold. But others don't seem to share this vision. Since I was a child, I've been labeled a weirdo. I look at things from unconventional angles. I think about details too deeply. That's what people have always said about me. I consistently scored at the top in intelligence tests. An IQ test I took in elementary school showed a score of 145, and I was once told I had extraordinary talent. But that high IQ often worked against me. I'd overanalyze the essence of things, making conversations with others feel out of sync. I questioned things too much, even about the obvious, and people said I lacked common sense. In the end, my high IQ was just a number, a factor that made it harder for me to connect with people. Even at work, I was an outlier. Dylan? I never understand what he's talking about. That presentation last time? No idea what his point was. Even the clients seemed lost. Oh yeah, remember when they straight up said, "Sorry, I don't get it. Can someone else take over?" I heard whispers like this every day from my colleagues. Then one day, it happened. "Dylan, got a minute?" Called into a conference room by my manager, Michael, I sat silently, staring at the table. From today onward, stay out of the projects. But, do I have to spell it out for you? Michael sighed in exhaustion. When you get involved, we lose contracts. Think about last month's case and this month's case, every single deal falls apart the moment you step in. We've built these relationships with painstaking effort, and you ruin them in an instant. Michael's words hung heavy in the suffocating air. Did you get it? Stop meddling and just stick to making documents. Watching Michael's retreating back, I felt the sting of my own powerlessness. Proposals no one understood, explanations completely out of sync with what people wanted, and comments that froze the atmosphere in meetings instantly. Before I knew it, I was labeled the guy who says unnecessary things. As a result, my desk was quietly relegated to the corner near the window. While the other employees' desks were clustered like islands, mine stood alone, isolated. One of the colleagues jokingly says, "That's Dylan's private seat. No one wants to sit there." After hearing things like that repeatedly, I stopped expecting anything from people or from work. There was no point in engaging with others, and it never went well anyway. If engaging with others would only lead to failure, then it was better to keep interactions to a minimum. I stopped caring about people. With that thought, I turned back to my computer, content with being alone. And then it happened. "Hey, Dylan!" The loud voice behind me made my shoulders tense involuntarily. Only one person in this company would call out to me like that. When I turned around, there was Joshua, one of my colleagues, standing with his usual cheerful smile. "You're so energetic in the morning, Joshua. Still doing security checks first thing in the morning?" Classic you. Joshua began talking happily, completely oblivious to the atmosphere around him. He worked in the same development department as me, but we were polar opposites in personality. He was the sociable type who could get along with anyone and explain technical concepts in ways everyone could understand. You could say he had an incredibly high social intelligence. "Oh, by the way, that security hole you found the other day? The client was thrilled when we reported it." "I see. That's good," I replied curtly, but Joshua continued without hesitation. "You know, Dylan, you always find vulnerabilities that I'd never notice. Your technical skills are insane. More people should know how amazing you are. It's not that big of a deal." Embarrassed, I mumbled a vague response. But Joshua looked at me with a serious expression. "No, really. Your knowledge is vital for this company. You should be more confident about it." He said it with his usual warm smile. Joshua was the only one in the company who actively engaged with me. At first, I honestly found his attitude annoying. But there was something undeniably genuine about his words. I gradually came to understand that he genuinely respected me. Joshua became the quiet yet steadfast presence who supported me, even as I kept my distance from others. That was the kind of person Joshua was. "Hey, Joshua." "Yeah? What's up? Why do you care so much about me? You know I'm a bit of a weirdo, right?" At my question, Joshua's usual smile faded, replaced by a distant look in his eyes. He leaned back in his chair, as if bracing himself to answer. "Do you remember last year, when it came out that I grew up in an orphanage?" "Yeah." That day was still vivid in my memory. It was during the company's year-end party when Joshua's background became a topic of discussion. Joshua's father had abandoned the family before he was old enough to remember. The shock of it seemed to take a toll on his mother, who fell ill and eventually passed away. With no relatives on his father's side, Joshua was placed in his maternal grandparents' care. But they, too, passed away early due to illness. Joshua, left completely alone in the world, was placed in an orphanage. Looking distant, as if recalling those times, Joshua continued speaking in a calm, steady tone. "Back then, a senior colleague said, 'Oh, so that's why Joshua's like that. Kids raised in orphanages lack love and tend to act needy.' Then others chimed in, saying, 'Makes sense, or he's always so desperate at work. It must be because he grew up in an orphanage.'" With a wry smile, Joshua went on. "But you were different. You stood up for me. You said, 'Don't judge someone just by their background.'" Joshua studies security harder than anyone and makes proposals with the clients in mind. Deciding who he is based on his past environment is just missing what really matters as a person. "You were the only one who had my back like that." "Ah, that's right. I remembered now. I was so angry at the time that I couldn't stop myself from speaking up. I've always been judged as just that kind of person because I grew up in an orphanage. It's something that's frustrated me for as long as I can remember. We can't understand who someone truly is just by their background. We have to see the person for themselves. You don't judge people so easily. You take the time to really see what's inside. That's why I know your dedication to your craft isn't misplaced. Joshua adjusted his chair back upright and looked straight at me. The words you said to me back then really meant a lot. That's why I want to make sure I see you for who you are, too. So yeah, that's why I believe in your so-called weird dedication. It's definitely not a waste. Scratching the back of his head with an embarrassed grin, Joshua let out a laugh. His words made my chest feel unexpectedly warm. In early April, when the cherry blossoms were in full bloom, we learned that our department head would be replaced as part of the company's personnel changes. Good morning. As of today, I'm appointed as the new head of the System Development Department. My name is Grace. The commanding voice that echoed across the floor made us instinctively straighten our backs. Standing before us was a woman clad in a sharp black suit. Her refined features were framed by sleek black hair that fell gracefully to her shoulders. She looked to be in her early 30s. She was undeniably beautiful, yet carried an intimidating air. Grace's first impression was unmistakably strict. We'd already heard rumors about her tenure at her previous post. Apparently, Grace revolutionized her last department. She even eliminated overtime but had no mercy for anyone who wasn't efficient. Yeah, I heard she's like a beautiful drill sergeant. These rumors had spread through the office well before her arrival. However, Grace's approach turned out to be slightly different from what we'd anticipated. While she was indeed strict, her sternness stemmed from a clear sense of judgment and precision. A few days after her appointment, a department meeting was held. The agenda was to review and revise the security measures for each division. Now, I'd like to hear your opinions on the current security settings, Grace said, scanning the room. No one raised their hand. I gripped the documents on the desk tightly, staying silent. I figured anything I said would just reinforce my reputation as the oddball. Dylan. To my surprise, my name was called, and I looked up. Grace was looking directly at me with an expectant yet firm gaze. You must have some thoughts on this matter, don't you? I read your report the other day, and it offered a fascinating perspective. Had she actually taken the time to read my report? The weight of everyone's stares made me hesitant, but Grace's words gave me the courage to stand up. The current uniform security settings are causing inefficiencies in operations. For example, in the admin department, strict email attachment size limits are slowing down workflows. In the development division, access restrictions to the test environment are delaying progress. Meanwhile, in the HR department, where sensitive personal information is handled, stricter measures should be in place. Therefore, I believe we should customize the security policies for each department based on their operational needs. The room buzzed with murmurs. The familiar atmosphere of skepticism surrounded me. Here goes Dylan again, with his self-righteous ideas. I expected my proposal to be dismissed, as always. But then it happened. Dylan is absolutely right. At first glance, this approach seems time-consuming, but by tailoring security to each department's needs, it will actually improve efficiency, Grace said, siding with my proposal. The meeting room fell silent, as if a pin had dropped. But what about the workload? Short-term workload versus long-term security. Our department should prioritize the latter. I believe Dylan's proposal aligns perfectly with that principle. Grace cast a sharp glance at the reluctant colleagues, and she turned back to me. Dylan, how about presenting this idea to the HR department? Her unexpected proposal left both me and the others stunned. But, even if I present it. Don't worry. I'll support you. True to her word, Grace set up a meeting with the HR managers a few days later. Until the day of my presentation, she stayed late to review my materials. She meticulously revised every word on the slides, aligning the phrasing with the perspective of the HR team. Sometimes she'd suggest, "It would be clearer if we included a diagram here," helping refine my explanations. This part of the explanation is. Grace tapped the pen against her fingertips thoughtfully, then suddenly brightened as if an idea had struck her. "Dylan, try explaining this as if you're talking to an elementary school student." An elementary school student. Startled by her suggestion, I hesitated. Grace tucked her sleek black hair behind her ear and smiled gently. Yes. After all, the HR team members aren't system experts. In fact, many of them likely struggle with IT. So, keep it simple enough for a child to understand without being condescending. She locked eyes with me, her gaze encouraging yet firm. For example, how would you explain it? Well, I thought for a moment before beginning. For the data redundancy system, I might say. Think of homework. You write it in your notebook, save it on your mom's computer, and back it up in the cloud. Managing it in 3 places might seem tedious, but even if you lose the notebook or the computer crashes, you'll always have a copy somewhere. That's the same principle we use to protect critical company systems with triple backups. Would that work? Grace's face lit up with a broad smile. Exactly. Start with a relatable analogy to convey the basic concept, then transition into the technical details. With this approach, even those unfamiliar with IT will feel confident following along. Then for the firewall explanation. Yes, please. Let's revise the materials with this approach. I'm sure the HR team will understand the importance of the system. Her expression softened slightly as she spoke. Dylan, you're incredibly skilled, but because of that, you sometimes overlook what's obvious to others. What's normal for you isn't always normal for everyone else. But if you can translate your advanced knowledge into simple, relatable terms like this, it becomes a powerful tool. Her words made me open my eyes wide in realization. I see. I had always assumed that as long as my explanations were technically accurate, they would get across. But to truly connect with others, I needed to question my own assumptions and reframe my ideas from their perspective. It wasn't a compromise, but it was the essence of effective communication. Let's reorganize the other security topics, starting with the basic concepts, to make them easier to understand. Balancing technical integrity with clarity. The challenge fascinated me, and I found myself fully immersed in the process. On the day of the presentation, I stepped into the meeting room to find the HR team waiting with unexpectedly serious expressions. Grace introduced me. Dylan, our security specialist, has a proposal that ties directly to boosting revenue. Her opening remarks successfully captured their interest. As I began explaining, they followed along intently, nodding as they flipped through the materials. After the presentation, Richard, the HR department head, approached me. Dylan, that was an excellent presentation. I never imagined you could explain things so clearly. I used to think of you as the quiet guy who always looked serious. His expression showed genuine interest in my proposal. When word of my successful presentation spread through the company, colleagues started reaching out to me more often. Dylan, can I run something by you? One of our clients has this issue. Dylan, what do you think about this configuration? Before I knew it, people were gathering around my desk. No one called me a weirdo anymore. Dylan, looks like things are going great for you, Joshua said one day, grinning mischievously. Grace is truly amazing, isn't she? And I mean that as a compliment. He was absolutely right. Grace had created an environment where I could thrive. More than that, I felt like I had started to change, little by little. I could express my thoughts more naturally than I ever could before. As I reflected on this, I found myself feeling a deep sense of gratitude and respect for Grace. Just then, Joshua, with an expression far from his usual cheerful demeanor, looked a little bashful. "You know, I've been thinking about Grace. She's so capable, beautiful, and that kind smile she shows every now and then, she's practically perfect," he admitted, his voice uncharacteristically shaky. It was rare to see Joshua, usually so fearless, blushing at just the mention of Grace's name. Sensing his embarrassment, I teased, "Oh, don't tell me you're falling for her?" Joshua immediately flustered, waving his hands in denial. "What? Don't be ridiculous." But his ears were bright red, betraying his true feelings. One day, Grace called Joshua and me into her office. "I've received an inquiry from Horizon Industries about a potential deal." Joshua and I exchanged surprised glances. Horizon Industries is a major food manufacturer with a nationwide presence. Recently, they've expanded into logistics and retail, growing into a company with annual revenues exceeding $1 billion. However, the company was known to be conservative in IT matters, with numerous attempts to revamp their security systems falling through over the years. Many veteran salespeople have visited Horizon Industries in the past, but they've all been turned away. This time, I want to try a different approach. With Dylan's expertise in security and Joshua's communication skills, I believe we have a real chance. "Wait, you want me to handle the negotiation?" I asked hesitantly, and Joshua clapped me on the shoulder. "Hey, Dylan, don't be so timid. Grace chose us for this. Grace, leave it to us. The two of us will seal the deal. I'm counting on you," she said with a smile. The next day, on the train to the meeting, Joshua stared out the window, his voice uncharacteristically reflective. "Hey, Dylan, Grace really believes in us, doesn't she?" "Yeah." He clenched his fist in determination. "All right. Let's make this work. We've got to deliver for her." Hearing those words, I couldn't help but smile. Sure, I was nervous, but Grace believed in us, and I had Joshua by my side. That alone gave me a little confidence. When we arrived at Horizon Industries headquarters, the head of their systems department, George, greeted us. He appeared to be in his mid-50s. He was a man with a calm demeanor yet sharp, penetrating eyes. "Thank you for coming all this way today." In the conference room, Joshua started the presentation with his signature charm. "Let me share a quick analogy about your core system." He began with a friendly smile. "Imagine a house with a front door and a back door. The front door has the latest, strongest lock, but the back door is still using an old, outdated one. It creates a vulnerability, doesn't it?" Seeing George nod in interest, Joshua handed over the explanation to me. "In your case, the link between your logistics management system and your sales management system is akin to that back door. Specifically, there are areas where data encryption is insufficient, leaving room for potential malicious interference. The worst-case scenario could involve inventory data manipulation. That's why we propose a phased security setup tailored to each department. To put it simply, think of each department as a floor in a high-rise building." I used specific examples to make the concept as clear as possible. When I finished, George folded his arms and closed his eyes. A long silence followed. Joshua leaned forward slightly, anticipating a reaction. Finally, George opened his eyes and turned to me with a smile. "An impressive analysis. This is the first time someone has identified our vulnerabilities so precisely. Who came up with this security strategy?" "It was Dylan here," Joshua said with a smile, gesturing toward me. George stood up and leaned slightly toward me. "I'm truly impressed. Every proposal we've received so far has only scratched the surface. But you're different. You've pinpointed the core issues in our system. Dylan, how about joining our team? What? Why would someone as capable as you have been overlooked until now? Perhaps your current company isn't the right fit for you. If you join us, we'll ensure you're compensated accordingly. How does 5 times your current salary sound? The sudden offer left the room in stunned silence. I could hear Joshua sharply inhale beside me. It was undeniably an extraordinary offer. But I bowed my head respectfully and replied, I'm honored by your kind offer, but I must decline. I have a boss at my current company who has supported and believed in me. It's thanks to her guidance that I've been able to grow to the point where you would value me this highly. Considering the debt of gratitude I owe her, I cannot accept your proposal. I see. George looked momentarily disappointed but soon broke into a gentle smile. Although I'm sad to hear that, I'd still like to proceed with this deal. In fact, discussions about system updates have already been circulating internally. Your proposal provides fascinating insights for our considerations. Let's set up another meeting soon. Of course. We look forward to it. Joshua and I replied, bowing in unison. We left the conference room and boarded the train. Joshua let out a big sigh. Dylan, you're incredible. 5 times your salary, and you turned it down? That response of yours, though, it was seriously cool. I just said what I felt. I replied simply, turning to look out the window. As the scenery outside changed, I couldn't help but think of Grace. When we returned to the office, the entire floor was waiting for us. Grace approached us with a nervous expression. How did it go? We got a strong response. George said he'd like to arrange another discussion soon. As Joshua made the announcement, the entire floor erupted with cheers and excitement. No way! Horizon Industries? That super conservative company? Wow, Dylan and Joshua pulled it off. The employees were all bursting with exclamations of surprise and excitement. Joshua, brimming with pride, chimed in. That's not all. Dylan got scouted. He was offered 5 times his salary. But he turned it down flat, all for Grace. Joshua. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. Wait, seriously? You turned down an offer like that, Dylan? Amid the growing commotion, Grace cleared her throat. In an instant, the floor fell silent. Both of you, you've done an amazing job. Thank you. She bowed deeply, and Joshua and I exchanged glances before grinning. Later that evening, the company's executive director, Stephen, visited Grace's desk. It was rare to see Stephen on the floor, and the entire office seemed tense. Grace, I heard about Horizon Industries. Outstanding work. Keep up the great results. After Stephen left, Grace glanced around the floor, smiling sheepishly. It's all thanks to everyone's efforts. I'll be counting on you all moving forward. Her words warmed my heart. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Choosing to work under her was one of the best decisions I'd ever made. To celebrate landing the major deal, our department organized a drinking party. I usually avoided such gatherings, but this time was different. I could genuinely feel that everyone was happy for us. The private room at the bar was lively, the usual workplace tension replaced by laughter. Joshua entertained everyone with humorous anecdotes about the negotiation, while senior colleagues reminisced about their past challenges. As the party reached its peak, I noticed Grace sitting next to me. Clutching my glass, I spoke up. Grace, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity and believing in me. Grace smiled warmly and set her glass down. Dylan, you're the one who did all the hard work. I didn't do anything. You've always been capable. So it would have been a waste not to let that talent shine. She paused briefly, her expression turning slightly concerned. But are you really okay with your decision? Turning down Horizon Industries' offer with such favorable terms? Yes. The person I am now is thanks to you, Grace. I replied without hesitation. Grace looked momentarily surprised but quickly softened into a gentle smile. You're such a good person. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I returned the smile, this time genuinely from my heart. Even the lively atmosphere around us felt comforting. Hey, what's this? You two look like you're having fun. Joshua appeared with a beer mug in hand, grinning as he joined us. Grace, you're drinking tonight? That's rare, you usually leave early. Well, tonight's special. Everyone worked so hard. When Grace replied, Joshua plopped himself down beside her with a wide grin. Grace, you've got a cute side to you, huh? Oh, Joshua. Grace said with a chuckle, shaking her head. And Joshua leaned in closer. Your glass is empty. Let me refill it for you. Thank you. So, Grace, what do you usually do on your days off? Well, I read a lot. Really? I've just gotten into reading myself. You'll have to recommend something for me. Listening to their conversation, I quietly sipped my drink and glanced around the room. The lively gathering was drawing to a close. Colleagues in a tipsy mood chatted happily. A warm sense of unity I'd never felt before filled the room. Let's wrap it up with a final toast, someone suggested. With that, the party ended, and people began to leave in groups. As I stood to grab my coat, Grace approached me. Dylan, you live nearby, don't you? Grace called out to me. Yes, about 10 minutes from the west exit of the station. I see. If it's all right with you, would you mind walking with me? I'm heading that way too. Her voice sounded unusually soft, almost hesitant. Puzzled, I nodded. Of course. Outside, the chilly night breeze brushed against our cheeks. The streets were quiet, lit only by the soft glow of streetlights. Grace suddenly stopped walking. Dylan, do you remember when we first met? Last summer, at the cafeteria in the main office. I had just returned from the branch office and couldn't figure out how to use the new water dispenser. You came over and helped me. Her words triggered my memory. Yes, I do remember. I spoke to you because you seemed confused about the different buttons for cold and hot water. The nostalgic memory surfaced clearly in my mind. Under the glow of the streetlights, Grace gave me a gentle smile. That's right. I still remember it vividly. You explained, the buttons are designed differently, so people can choose their preferred temperature. Then, you even helped me figure out the temperature that was easiest for me to drink. She looked up at the night sky, a self-deprecating smile crossing her face. At that time, I had just been reassigned to a new department. I'd driven away several capable subordinates because of my own stubbornness. They were all skilled workers, but I thought there was only one efficient way to work, my way. I dismissed anyone who didn't fit into that mold as incompetent. Grace exhaled slowly, then turned her gaze back to me. But your words made me realize something. Everyone has their own way of working. There's a place where each person fits best. Understanding that and providing tailored support is a leader's responsibility. It's not just about demanding efficiency, but it's about nurturing individual strengths and trusting their potential. There's no single way to bring out the best in people. Adapting to each individual is what truly matters. You taught me that, Dylan. Thank you for opening my eyes. The night breeze passed between us, the streetlights casting long shadows of our figures on the ground. I couldn't find the words to respond, but I felt a warmth spreading in my chest, filling me with an unfamiliar sense of pride and gratitude. Before I realized it, words began to spill from my lips. When I was a kid, people always told me, just do things like everyone else. I was criticized for asking too many questions in class, for overthinking, for not reading the room. Over time, I started to believe that being different meant I was a failure. As the night wind blew, I found myself sharing thoughts I had buried deep inside. Hearing this, Grace shook her head emphatically. That's not true. Those differences of yours are what make you special. Thinking differently, seeing things from another perspective. That's exactly why you can notice problems no one else does. It's a remarkable quality. Individuality should never be dismissed. It should be cherished and developed. Your differences will surely help someone someday. Her eyes, illuminated by the streetlights, shone with sincerity. Her words struck a chord deep within me. And I felt my eyes start to burn with emotion, and I smiled. I hadn't felt happy naturally like this in a long time. Before I realized it, we had arrived in front of Grace's apartment building, where she came to a stop. The tall structure loomed against the night sky, its silhouette reaching upward. She stopped and turned to me. Would you like to come in for some tea? What? No, I mean. My voice accidentally cracked. I waved my hands frantically in refusal, and Grace chuckled softly. Don't worry, Dylan. I trust you. Well. Caught off guard, I could only stammer out an awkward response. While I was flattered by her trust, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. What am I even thinking? I scolded myself internally. I glanced at her face. Under the soft glow of the streetlight, her profile looked breathtakingly beautiful. My heart started pounding uncontrollably. I need to get to bed early, so I'll head home. See you Monday. I blurted out my goodbye and hurried off. I thought I heard Grace's laughter behind me as I walked away. Since that day, I found myself walking Grace home more often. Good evening. I greeted her one night as I waited at the west exit. By now, it felt natural, though I remembered how nervous I had been at first. We'd talk about work or share light-hearted conversations as we walked. The 15 minutes to her home felt like a strangely peaceful routine. Dylan, you really love your work, don't you? Yes. I think of security as a way to protect a company's personality. Still the same as ever. She smiled softly, her profile glowing under the streetlights. Lately, even other employees would comment, "You and Grace seem pretty close, huh?" But to me, Grace was a figure of admiration, a goal to strive for, and most importantly, the person who had recognized my individuality and worth. Still, whenever her apartment building came into view, I couldn't help but feel a small pang of loneliness. See you tomorrow. Yes, take care. Those simple, everyday exchanges had become irreplaceable to me. The negotiation with Horizon Industries, initially framed as a security review, steadily progressed. At first, the meetings had a stiff and formal atmosphere, but over time, they grew more relaxed and friendly. Recently, I've taken up mountain climbing on weekends. George casually mentioned after one of our meetings. The mood in the conference room shifted, softening as the conversation moved away from work. Really? That's surprising. Climbing is perfect for stress relief. When you see the view from the summit, your daily worries feel so small. Joshua latched onto George's unexpected hobby. I've always wanted to try climbing. What mountains would you recommend for a beginner? Well, for beginners, I'd recommend Mount Takao. There's an excellent restaurant near the observation deck. The conversation shifted from work to hobbies. From there, it naturally expanded to favorite restaurants and preferred foods, flowing effortlessly. The atmosphere among us had evolved beyond that of mere business partners. We now felt more like acquaintances, or even close friends. Dylan, Joshua, I'm glad I get to work with you. I'm counting on you both going forward, George said as we wrapped up the meeting. His warm smile conveyed genuine affection. Over time, these casual conversations with the seasoned George became one of the small joys of my work. However, there was something troubling me. It was Joshua. Good work today, Joshua, I said after a Horizon Industries meeting. Yeah, he replied curtly, his tone distant. Lately, Joshua had been like this. He would leave quickly after meetings, often walking ahead without waiting for me. At work, the usual banter between us had all but disappeared. Today, as he moved to a different train car, I finally decided to confront him. Hey, Joshua. Is something going on lately? He glanced at me briefly before looking away. Nothing. Oh, by the way, for the next meeting with Horizon Industries, you should go on your own. What? I've got more projects piling up, and you can't rely on me forever, can you? Just then, the train arrived at our stop. Without waiting for a response, Joshua headed straight for the ticket gate. It was true that I had been handling most of the preparation for Horizon Industries meetings alone recently. Even for other projects, we had started working separately. The official reason was efficiency. But something didn't feel right. I couldn't shake the sense that Joshua's change in attitude wasn't just due to being busy. What that sense of unease meant, however, was still beyond my grasp. On the day of the next meeting, I headed to Horizon Industries alone. Oh, is Joshua not coming today? George asked at the start of the meeting, his tone one of genuine curiosity. Yes, it seems he's been quite busy with other projects lately. Is that so? George tilted his head. A hint of sadness flickering in his gaze. Dylan, has something happened between you and Joshua? Lately, the two of you seem a bit strained. It's noticeable. No, it's just work-related adjustments. I trailed off, avoiding his eyes. George lowered his gaze and let out a deep sigh. That's a shame. I miss the camaraderie you two used to share, it was refreshing. Still, I have high hopes for your proposal, Dylan. Let's keep pushing forward with this deal. I nodded, but a lingering unease remained in my chest. The work was progressing, yes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something important was slipping away. A few nights later, as Grace and I walked home together, I decided to bring it up. Grace, can I ask you for advice about Joshua? Joshua, yes, I've been concerned about him too. He's been acting differently lately, hasn't he? Grace also came to a stop. Just then, the sound of footsteps approached from behind. Grace tensed for a moment, her body stiffening. However, the source of the footsteps quickly passed us by. It was an office worker heading home from work. Grace exhaled quietly, visibly relieved. Grace? Are you okay? Me? I'm fine. But about Joshua, he's been leaving the Horizon Industries negotiations to you, hasn't he? You two used to be so close. What happened? That's the thing, I don't know either. We continued the conversation until we reached her apartment. Let's talk about this more tomorrow. I nodded and said goodbye to Grace. However, after taking just a few steps, I thought I heard her gasp softly. Turning back, I saw her standing by the mailbox, her face pale. I rushed back to her side. What's wrong? Dylan. She began, startled by my return. After a brief hesitation, she showed me the contents of her mailbox. Inside were several unmarked envelopes. I've been finding these in my mailbox recently. And it's not just that, there are late-night calls from unknown numbers. Strange noises outside my apartment, and this constant feeling of being watched. I think I might have a stalker. Her words sent a chill through me. She pulled out her phone. On the screen, there were multiple suspicious call records from unknown numbers. I went to the police, but they said they couldn't investigate without clear harm being done. She said, her voice faint. Seeing the usually composed and confident Grace looking so vulnerable was jarring. I made up my mind. Grace, please rely on me. Protecting others is what I do. It's the essence of my work. I promise I'll keep you safe. Dylan. She said softly, a small, relieved smile appearing on her face. From that night on, I made it a point to be extra vigilant during Grace's commute home. I ensured she got into her apartment safely each evening. Afterward, I'd patrol the area around her building, checking for anything unusual. This routine became my new normal. Meanwhile, the deadline for the Horizon Industries negotiations loomed ever closer. With multiple projects overlapping, my workload had increased significantly, leading to long days and late nights. I used to share the workload with Joshua, but now I had to handle everything on my own. In the office, it was just me and Grace. The soft clattering of keyboard strokes echoed through the quiet floor. Still working overtime, Grace? Yes, I still have to finish the end-of-month department report. Plus, it's a little scary to go home alone. She replied, glancing up at me with a faint blush on her cheeks, or so I thought. I shook my head, telling myself it was just my imagination. And I stood up. I need to clear my head a bit. I'll go to the convenience store. Do you need anything? Thank you. Could you get me a coffee? Stepping outside, the warm early summer breeze brushed against my face. The glow of a nearby convenience store stood out against the dark night. At that moment, I sensed someone's presence in the shadows of the building. It was unmistakable, someone was watching me. There was no mistaking it. I held my breath and approached the source of the presence. To my shock, it was George. George! When I called him, he turned around, startled. Oh, Dylan. What are you doing here at this hour? Ah, just some personal business. Well, I should go. George muttered, avoiding eye contact, and quickly tried to leave. His retreating figure carried a melancholy air that I couldn't quite place. When I returned to the office with the coffee, I hesitated to tell Grace about what had just happened. Ultimately, I decided not to say anything. I didn't want to worry her unnecessarily. A few weeks later, chaos erupted early in the day. Angry shouts from a client echoed through the office. This is unacceptable. All the data we had yesterday is completely gone. Security measures? This has made things more vulnerable instead. The contract details don't match the actual configuration at all. The phones at customer support wouldn't stop ringing. Complaints poured in one after another, leaving the entire floor in chaos. Employees moved frantically, their faces marked by confusion and panic. Just then, the meeting room door burst open. Grace! What's going on? The number of complaints has already exceeded 20 companies. Stephen, the executive, shouted angrily as he stormed in. Grace stepped forward, her posture firm despite the tension. My apologies. We are currently assessing the situation. Assessing? This isn't the time for such leisurely talk. I need solutions now. Yes, but we need to understand the situation first. I don't want excuses. If you can't resolve this, you'll be stepping down as department head. Stephen's harsh words froze the entire floor. The morning sunlight streaming through the windows highlighted the tension on Grace's face. After Stephen stormed out, Grace turned to me. Dylan, can you identify all the clients who filed complaints? Following her directive, I quickly dove into the data. As I reviewed the list of clients, a sense of unease crept in. This is... Dylan, did you find something? Grace, all these accounts were new contracts acquired by Joshua within the past 6 months. Grace furrowed her brow. Let's check the contracts. We began pulling up the agreements from the database one by one. When I saw the details, my heart sank. The numbers. The security settings in the contracts showed eerily similar figures. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that some values were identical down to multiple decimal places, as if it had been copied from a single template. Other discrepancies became apparent: server capacity misaligned with actual needs, excessively complex network configurations for smaller clients, and claims of cost efficiency with no supporting evidence. Joshua, what is the meaning of this? Grace's voice trembled with anger. Joshua remained silent, staring at the floor before mumbling in a faint voice. It always worked out before. I used Dylan's contracts as a base, changed the numbers, and figured we could fix things later during implementation. Dylan always adjusted everything meticulously during deployment. So I thought it would be fine if I just borrowed the templates. Grace stood speechless. I was equally stunned. It was true that when drafting contracts, I was thorough to a fault. I had meticulously analyzed client workflows, measured system usage frequencies, and accounted for future scalability to calculate the most accurate figures. Often, I worked late into the night, running countless tests and revising the numbers multiple times. As a result, post-implementation issues were almost non-existent. I stood up and turned to my keyboard, determined. Carefully, I began reviewing the complaint data, client by client. Grace, leave this to me. First, I'll analyze the system's operational status. Each company has different peak times for their workloads, so I can redesign the server load distribution. Multiple graphs lit up on the screen, showing patterns and trends. For example, Company A has critical operations early in the morning, while Company B peaks in the evening. By leveraging this time difference, the same server resources can handle both without issue. This will maintain stability while keeping costs down. I quickly entered data. Only the sound of my rapid typing broke the tense quiet as I worked to stabilize what had been thrown into chaos. Then, I'll also optimize the security levels based on each company's actual needs. For instance, Company C handles a lot of external access, so I'll implement two-factor authentication for them. Meanwhile, Company D primarily operates internally, so we'll prioritize usability in their settings. Are you sure this will work? Grace asked, her voice tinged with concern, and I nodded confidently. Yes. I already had a good grasp of each client's requirements. I reviewed all the previous meeting notes thoroughly. By the end of the workday, I managed to draft a comprehensive set of corrections. These proposals were promptly sent to the respective clients. The first response came early the next morning from Company A, the first to lodge a complaint. There were issues with the previous contract details, but this new proposal is highly satisfactory. I'm particularly impressed with the server adjustments tailored to our peak order processing hours. Thank you for your prompt and thoughtful response. Shortly after, Company B also reached out. The detailed figures lend credibility to your plan. It's clear that you understand our operational structure well. With this proposal, we feel confident in trusting this to your company. Positive feedback continued to roll in. Company C praised the two-factor authentication, while Company D appreciated the usability-focused design for their internal systems. Dylan's proposals are meticulously tailored to each client's specific needs. And to think he managed to craft all these corrections in just one day. Stephen remarked, flipping through the thick stack of reports in astonishment. Beside him, Grace let out a small sigh of relief. Despite the successful responses, the office remained busy late into the evening, the clock already well past 10 p.m. From a corner of the floor, I overheard tired voices. Oh, staying this late, what a drag. This is all Joshua's fault, isn't it? He's always been all talk. Maybe his sales numbers were fudged too. Can't trust a guy like that. Honestly, he should just quit and take responsibility for this mess. As the whispered accusations grew louder, the atmosphere on the floor turned heavy. Suddenly, Grace's firm voice cut through the tension. Now is the time to focus on resolving the issues. If you have the energy to gossip, you should head home for the day instead. Under Grace's stern gaze, the employees gossiping lowered their heads in silence. They offered small, apologetic nods before quickly gathering their belongings and leaving the office. As Grace watched their retreating figures, her face showed signs of exhaustion. Yet, her eyes remained resolute, unwavering in their determination. With the departure of the gossiping employees, a sudden calm returned to the floor. Grace quietly approached Joshua, her steps measured and deliberate. "Joshua, we need to talk." "Why did you do this?" Her voice carried both weariness and a trace of kindness. Joshua, staring at the floor, began speaking in a trembling voice. "At first, I just meant to use Dylan's documents as a reference. But it was so easy to close deals that way, and you always praised me for it." Joshua's excuse-laden words trailed on, his voice filled with desperation. Hearing this, Grace furrowed her brows. "That's not what I'm asking, Joshua. I want to understand why. You've been acting strangely for a while now, almost avoiding Dylan altogether." Suddenly, Joshua's expression twisted into anger. "It's all your fault, Grace. You like me, but you're spending all your time with Dylan instead." "What? What are you talking about?" Grace's voice froze with disbelief. I, too, was stunned. What was Joshua saying? "Every day, you walk home together, laughing like you're having the best time. You don't even look at me. What is this? Are you trying to make me jealous? If so, congratulations, you succeeded. I tried to tell you how I felt, so I sent letters, called you over and over. Even waited outside your house." "No way." Grace's face turned pale. Reacting instinctively, I stepped between her and Joshua. "Get out of my way, Dylan." "Stop, Joshua. Can't you see you're scaring her?" "Shut up. You don't understand anything. My parents abandoned me. I was bounced around from one foster home to another. No one has ever needed me." Suddenly, tears streamed down Joshua's face as his voice broke. Why is it only you? Even if others don't understand you, at least you have Grace who does. When you mess up, someone always has your back. But me? No one ever sees me. All I want is to be loved, to feel needed." He slammed his fists on the desk. "So, I worked like hell to boost my numbers, to get Grace to notice me. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never be like you. I could never have someone who cared for me like that. Ever since I was in the facility, it's been the same. You were abandoned by your parents, you're unwanted, they'd say. I tried to believe it wasn't true, so I forced myself to fit in, to act cheerful, to please everyone, but no one ever saw the real me." His voice broke into sobs, and he sank to the floor, his shoulders trembling. I'm all alone in this world. I've never been needed, never been loved. But Grace, you smiled at me. At least, I thought I could matter to you." His words carried the weight of profound loneliness and despair, as though years of bottled-up emotions had come flooding out. "No, Joshua. You're completely wrong about not being needed by anyone," I said firmly, my voice calm but resolute. Joshua looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. I stepped closer and continued. "You saved me, Joshua. When everyone treated me like an outcast, you didn't. You listened to me, tried to understand me. You didn't roll your eyes or get bored when I talked endlessly about security. If it weren't for you, I'd still be the guy sitting in the corner, talking to no one. Your understanding helped me change little by little. I need you." I placed a gentle hand on his trembling shoulder. "And your father has always been watching over you too." "What?" "George. From Horizon Industries. He's your father." Joshua's eyes widened in shock. "George told me the story. 30 years ago, when he was co-running a business, it suddenly went under. As a co-signer, George was saddled with a massive debt. At the time, you were only 2 years old. Staying with you and your mother would have dragged you both into poverty. To protect you, he had no choice but to disappear. I paused, letting the weight of the story sink in. He changed his name, cut ties, and pretended you didn't exist to keep debt collectors away. He worked tirelessly to pay it all off. But by the time he did, your mother had passed and you'd been placed in a facility. He couldn't face you after severing those ties. Still, he wanted to be close to you, so he transferred to Horizon Industries' regional office. When he saw you during a meeting, he told me, "Seeing my son grown up and doing well, it was the happiest moment of my life." The sky outside the window was beginning to brighten with the first light of dawn. I continued speaking, my voice steady. "Even after you stopped showing up at meetings, he kept worrying about you. That's why he often lingered near the office late at night. He wanted to make sure you were okay. He told me he just wanted to see you, to know you were doing well." No way. Large tears rolled down Joshua's cheeks. He covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking as sobs overtook him. I'd been such a fool. I let jealousy consume me, hurt others to feel validated. And all along, someone did care about me. Someone was right there. Wiping his tears, Joshua stood and turned to Grace. He bowed deeply. "Grace, I'm so sorry. The letters, the calls, the stalking, it was all me. I know it's unforgivable, but..." He faltered, overwhelmed with emotion, but Grace smiled gently. "It's okay. You were just lonely, trying to be recognized. It just happened to be me. But now, it's different, right? You have someone who truly sees you for who you are. You don't have to suffer alone anymore. Yes, from now on, I'll make sure I never disgrace him again. And I'll never trouble Dylan again, not ever," Joshua said, bowing repeatedly as he wiped away his tears. There was a newfound strength in his words, a resolve that hadn't been there before. Grace nodded, her smile warm. "Then let's leave this incident behind us. Instead, show me your true potential. You have a talent for understanding clients' needs. Use that strength in the right way. I believe in you and your worth." Tears welled up again in Joshua's eyes. "Thank you, Grace. I'll earn back your trust and meet my father with pride." As dawn broke, its light reflected in Joshua's tears. A month has passed. The setting sun bathed the office in a golden glow. Joshua and I were poring over a monitor, reviewing contracts together. We'd been at it for nearly an hour, meticulously checking every detail. "Can you explain the basis for these cost calculations again?" Joshua asked, pointing at the screen. I nodded and began explaining carefully from the beginning. "First, you analyze the client's system usage. For example, this company has a sales department with 100 employees. Their peak access time is concentrated in the morning, so that's why this number makes sense." "Got it." He took notes diligently. Working alongside Joshua like this had become a regular occurrence. Sometimes we would stay late, verifying data together right up until the end of the workday. This had become the new normal. Client trust was gradually being restored. In fact, the number of new contracts was now higher than before. Even the voices of employees who once gossiped about Joshua had shifted. "I'm sorry," one of them said during lunch, approaching Joshua's desk. "We didn't know anything and just said whatever we wanted then. You've really turned things around, Joshua. I heard there are far fewer problems now, and you're putting a lot of care into each contract. Clients are saying great things about you. Honestly, we've been learning a lot from you lately." Joshua shook his head with an embarrassed smile. "No, really, I should be thanking you all," he said with a shy grin. The shadows that once clung to Joshua were nowhere to be seen. The negotiations with Horizon Industries had proceeded smoothly, and today, we finally signed the contract. As the pen was lifted from the contract in the Horizon Industries conference room, I let out a quiet sigh of relief. This officially seals the agreement for the core system redevelopment project. George nodded solemnly. Yes, this is a significant step for our company. You've helped change the mindset of our once conservative team. Dylan, Joshua, you both did an excellent job. No, we're just honored to have achieved this dream of working with Horizon Industries. When Joshua responded, George stood, shaking our hands firmly. When he shook Joshua's hand, his own was visibly trembling. Still holding Joshua's hand, George hesitated before speaking. Joshua, I've kept quiet about this until now, but I'm your father. Joshua stared at him silently, his eyes locked on George. George looked down, his voice heavy with emotion. You wouldn't remember me, since we parted before you could even form memories. When we reconnected through this negotiation and I saw the incredible work you've done, I couldn't have been prouder. But as a father, I've done nothing for you. I should have raised you with love and care, but instead, George's voice faltered, and his eyes glistened with tears. Joshua finally spoke. I already know everything. Dylan told me about how you worked so hard to repay your debts while still thinking of me. I know now how much you cared. From now on, I'll be a son you can be proud of. So please, keep watching over me, Dad. Tears streamed down Joshua's face as he spoke. George said nothing, but opened his arms wide. Without hesitation, Joshua stepped into his embrace. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I kept quiet and watched this moment of reconciliation. The emotions of 30 years poured out into the stillness of the conference room. It was about the time the streetlights began flickering on. I was walking home with Grace as usual. Since then, I haven't received any more strange calls or letters. And that unsettling feeling of being watched is gone too. Grace said, her voice soft as she gazed up at the starry sky. The realization that the stalking incidents had ceased brought a sigh of relief from me. Grace, standing beside me, lowered her gaze slightly and spoke softly. The other night, at the office party, when I asked you to walk me home, it was because of the stalking. It was late, and I was scared. I see, so I began, but stopped myself mid-sentence. I couldn't bring myself to finish the thought, fearing that saying, I guess you don't need me to walk you home anymore, would make it real. Under the streetlight, a quiet pause lingered between us. Dylan, I'd like you to keep walking me home. Grace murmured, her voice softer than usual. I looked at her in surprise. The stalking may have stopped, but these walks with you have become something very precious to me. She continued, gazing at the night sky. Every evening, you listen to me with such care. You've tried to understand my work struggles, my doubts, and everything. You've understood me in a way no one else ever has. People have always called me harsh, but you saw it as a strength, as part of who I am. You were the first person to truly accept me for who I am. That's why I want to keep being with you. That's my honest feeling. The streetlight illuminated Grace's eyes, which glimmered with clarity and depth. Our shadows stretched long as we walked side by side. I stopped in my tracks and turned to face her directly. I've always avoided getting too close to people. I've never clung to anyone before. But for the first time, I've realized I don't want to be apart from you. I want to stay with you, to be by your side. Under the light of the street lamp, Grace's cheeks faintly reddened. Dylan, why don't you come up to my place? Tonight, I want to stay with you. I nodded slowly. Then, I gently took her hand in mine. In the quiet of the evening, under the fading night sky, our two shadows intertwined. Everyone carries something unique about them. For a long time, I saw my differences as flaws. Not being able to behave like everyone else made me feel like I was defective, like I didn't belong. But I was wrong. Joshua excels at connecting with people, while I specialize in meticulous details. These differences aren't about better or worse. They're complementary strengths. Grace showed me that such differences are assets. When individuals embrace their distinct traits, a team becomes stronger. There is a place where everyone can shine by being their true selves. Grace embodied that truth, showing it through her actions. Being different from others is never a bad thing. When we acknowledge and embrace each other's differences, building relationships that draw strength from them, that's when we truly become strong. My name is Roy. Back in school, I was the president of a biker gang. Now, I'm the boss of the Sutherland family, with 15,000 members. That said, only a handful of friends in the same crew know about it. I don't tell my friends about my current life because it could create distance between us, or worse, attract troublemakers. I just want to hang out with them as a regular guy. Today, some of my old friends and I plan to get together for a drink. Yo, long time no see. I headed to the bar we'd agreed on and greeted my friends, who I hadn't seen in a while. They were all guys from my gang days, but now they'd become corporate workers and had mellowed out a lot. Roy, you look as lively as ever. You're not looking so bad yourself. Nah, not really. I'm struggling every day, trying to please my boss. We all laughed, realizing we were in the same boat, as we swapped complaints about work and our wives. Just then, the door opened, and in walked a stunning woman. Ha! Isn't that Erica? Now that he mentioned it, it really was Erica. I thought to myself, just my luck, running into trouble like this. Well, if it isn't Roy. It's been a long time, hasn't it? As soon as Erica spotted me, she immediately came over. Why couldn't she just ignore me? I am sick and tired of thinking so, but Erica always gets involved with me on one occasion or another. Yeah, it's been a while. I heard you're a corporate worker now? Huh? Oh, yeah, that's right. Are you kidding me? You used to be so strong, and now you're just a regular corporate worker? Even the former president turned out to be nothing but an ordinary man. Yeah, that's right. So, did you come here to drink with your husband? That's right. No other man interests me, you know. Oh, is that so? Then maybe you should hurry back to him. A woman as stunning as you chatting with other guys would make him jealous, wouldn't it? Oh, trust me, he would. Roy, don't you ever regret letting me go? I glanced at Erica. The other guys often say, a woman as beautiful as Erica? I'd never let her go. Honestly, I don't feel that way. But what would happen if I told such a thing to a proud Erica? I don't even have to think about it. Yeah, you're right. I still regret not being able to say yes back then. Erica looked at me triumphantly. See, Erica used to be the president of an all-women biker gang. She was beautiful and tough, and every gang leader wanted her. She knew her own beauty and strength well and refused to acknowledge guys weaker than her. At the same time, she arrogantly believed no man could resist her if she showed interest. There was a time when Erica fell for me and asked me out. But I already had a girlfriend back then, so I turned her down. That earned me a spot on her grudge list, and every time we crossed paths, she'd find some way to pick a fight with me. Eventually, I decided not to argue with Erica. It wasn't worth the trouble. Erica taught me a lesson: when a woman holds a grudge, it can get real messy. So I thought the person who married Erica must be in a lot of trouble. So, what's this? A pity party for corporate workers? Yeah, pretty much. If we don't vent with friends now and then, the work just gets too hard to bear. Corporate workers are so pathetic. If you need to whine in a place like this, that's truly sad. Mafias don't have that problem. Why didn't you ever become one, Roy? You could have aimed for the top. Austin looked at me. Out of everyone here today, Austin is the only one who knows I'm part of the mafia. He even calls himself a fan of mine. Because of that, he doesn't like seeing me insulted, and his expression had soured. Well, yeah, I probably could have become a mafia boss, but being a corporate worker suits me better. The truth is, I'd always admired the life of a corporate worker. More than anything, being a respected member of society, walking freely under the sun, and sharing drinks with coworkers after a long day. There's less pressure in that. Right now, I feel crushed by responsibility. It's all futile, though, since I was born to lead the Sutherland family and had no other choice. Suits you? You, of all people, who were so strong. Now you're telling me being a corporate worker suits you? You've gone soft, Roy. I can't believe it. Back then, you were like a sharp knife, taking down anyone who attacked you. Now, you're a rusty blade with no edge at all. You can't stay a kid forever. You're not the same as you were back then either, are you? Well, maybe I don't have the power I used to. But my husband is mafia. He's an underboss. So he's nothing like the guys around here. Honestly, not choosing you back then turned out to be lucky for me. Yeah, you're probably right. Even if I had picked you, I couldn't have kept you happy. So, I guess this worked out for both of us. So you're saying all things must pass? But if someone picked a fight with you, you'd still fight back, wouldn't you? No, I wouldn't. If I got hurt, my family would worry about me. Wow, you really are pathetic now. It's hard to believe. But I guess this is reality. Whatever. You lost your edge the moment you stepped down as president. No one could trust someone like that with their life. At least you knew when to quit. Yeah, that's right. I realized that this life is what suits me, and that's good enough for me. You're a tiger who's lost his fangs. What a boring man. That's when Austin, who'd been holding it in, finally spoke up in a low voice. I've had enough of this. You don't know a damn thing about Roy. Huh? And what is it I don't know? Hey, Austin, stop it. No way. I can't just sit here and listen to this. Erica, do you really think Roy's turned into some weak, washed-up nobody? He said it himself. He looks like just another average guy. You're blind. Roy's the real deal. He's mafia. What? No way. It's the truth. Hey, Austin. Sorry. I meant to keep quiet, but I can't stand hearing her talk about you like that. Even if that's true, he's probably just some low-level thug, right? My husband is an underboss of the Eldon family. You can't compare to that. What did you just say? Hey, Austin, knock it off. It's not worth it. Maybe, but still. You think you're so calm and composed, huh? Austin, you've always been Roy's lapdog, haven't you? And I see nothing's changed. Wake up already. Why are you still sticking by a weakling like him? If you're going to follow someone, it should be a real man, someone like my husband. You idiot. You're just mad because Roy turned you down all those years ago. What did you just say? Yeah, that's right. Roy never gave a damn about a woman like you. You're joking. Like I'd ever want him. Austin, you're the one who's pathetic, clinging to the memory of Roy as some big-shot president. If he really were mafia, he wouldn't be bragging about it like that. Yeah, maybe you're right. Roy. See? No point in defending him. A tiger with no fangs isn't worth protecting. Back then, I thought I was in love with him. But that was just a foolish mistake. Now it's nothing but a black mark on my history. What a weak, worthless man. Enough already. Roy isn't anything like what you think he is. He said so himself. What more do you need? Why do you keep defending him? Unless, is he just a low-level thug? Either way, it doesn't matter to me. Roy, are you really going to let her talk to you like this? I can't stand it. Fine. Should I just wipe out that underboss's family, then? What? What did you just say? You're going to wipe out my husband's family? Who do you think you are? Who am I? Yeah, I wonder. There's no way you could take down the Eldon family. Even if you were mafia, only something as big as the Sutherland family could pull that off. Well, looks like you know your stuff. Of course. My husband is the underboss of the Eldon family. That much should be common knowledge. So, your husband is the underboss of the Eldon family, huh? Well, this is getting interesting. That's what I said. What's so funny about it? Do you know what would happen if the Eldon family got taken down because of one foolish comment from a clueless wife? What? That's impossible. Even if, and I mean if, you were part of the Sutherland family, the only ones who could touch us would be an underboss or the boss himself. Anyone else doesn't even deserve a conversation. Yeah, you're right. See? That means you're not one of the big guys. Even if you really are mafia, you're probably just some grunt from a pathetic little family. Roy, a grunt? That's right. Maybe he's with the Corbin family or the Eaton family. Keep talking like that, and you'll regret it. Regret it? Don't be ridiculous. So, Roy, what are you really? If you're a corporate worker, why don't you tell Austin the truth? Let him know which boring company you work for and how dull your life is. It's sad watching him blindly believe in you like this. Or are you just scared to lose your fan and keep piling on the lies? Nah, it's nothing like that. Then tell me. What's your real identity? I looked at Erica. Her face was full of mockery. When I glanced at Austin, his eyes were serious, as if pleading for me to tell the truth. At that point, I realized there was no running away. I'm the boss of the Sutherland family. What? Erica's face went blank, completely stunned. For a moment, it made her look less beautiful. What did you just say? He said he is the boss of the Sutherland family. You're joking, right? I'm not. Oh, he's not lying. The others at the table looked shocked at this unexpected turn. After all, if I was really the boss of the Sutherland family, then all my talk about being a corporate worker had been a complete lie. Their confused expressions made sense. She didn't know whether to believe my old story or this new revelation. Then why didn't you say so from the start? If you're the boss of the Sutherland family, you should hold your head high. Why pretend to be a corporate worker? Do I really need to go around bragging that I'm in the mafia? Besides, I hate the look on people's faces when they find out. I'm still me. You know? You're acting all cool, but you're just scared, aren't you? There are perks to being in the mafia, you know. Yeah? Like what? But, how are you the boss? You're only 45. In a smaller organization, I could see bosses getting taken down or replaced quickly. But an organization as big as the Sutherland family? That's unheard of. I let out a small sigh. Why did I have to explain all this when I just come here to have drinks with my friends? But at this point, there was no turning back. If I stayed quiet, Erica would just keep pressing me. Do you remember my last name? No, not really. Sutherland. Ha? Sutherland? Was that your name? Yeah, Sutherland. In other words, I was born to take over. I just didn't expect it to happen this soon. Why? My husband said he couldn't become the boss while the current boss was still healthy. That's how it works. My old man believed that if he stayed as boss forever, it'd keep the younger guys from rising up. So he stepped aside and named me boss, while he took over as chairman. That's how I ended up with this heavy burden. That actually happens? It does. Trust me, I didn't expect it either. So you're saying you outrank my husband? Different families, Erica. There's no ranking between us. Is that why you're acting so confident? Does it look that way? Honestly, I'm stretched pretty thin. When you're the boss, you've got 15,000 members under you. It's my job to protect them. You know. I can see why the previous boss stepped down so quickly. But still, you only inherited the position from your father. My husband climbed his way up to underboss all on his own. That means my husband's stronger, right? Why do you sound so unsure of yourself? I'm not unsure. My husband's waiting for me, so I'll be going now. With that, Erica left our table. I occasionally spotted her sitting with her husband, drinking, but she seemed lost in thought, staring blankly into space. Later, I heard that things had taken a dramatic turn without me knowing. Apparently, when Erica got home, she had made a wild request of her husband, Jason. Hey, Jason. Take down the boss of the Sutherland family, please. Huh? What's this out of nowhere? I ran into him at the bar earlier. The boss of the Sutherland family had the nerve to hit on me. And he knew I'm married to the Eldon family's underboss. Oh? He hit on you? Yeah. That guy even used to come after me back in the gang days. But I never paid him any attention because I thought he was just some boring civilian. Then today, I find out he's a mafia boss. The boss of the Sutherland family. He wouldn't stop pestering me to become his woman. That's unforgivable. Exactly. So take him down. I can't stand the thought of that creep coming after me again. I'm your wife, after all. Wait, are you saying you want me to take down the Sutherland family? Yeah, if you can. I'd prefer you crush the whole family. I see. But taking out the Sutherland family as a whole isn't realistic. Why not? The Eldon family is just as powerful as they are, isn't it? Not quite. Their numbers far outmatch ours. But if it's just the boss you're after, that's not entirely impossible. Really? Yeah, just him. After all, he's only human. Then do it. I'll never forgive him for living so smugly after this. All right. He dared hit on my woman, so I'll take care of it. The next day, I was walking alone down a back alley when a man appeared before me. In his hand was a steel pipe. Is this guy here to attack me? You're Roy, the boss of the Sutherland family? Why? If you know my name, does that mean you've come here to take me down? Yeah, of course I have. And why are you attacking me? Because you hit on my wife. Me? I did? That's right. And who are you? It's too dark to make out your face. At that, the man stepped forward. The light from a street lamp lit up his face. Wait, you're the underboss of the Eldon family. Yeah, that's right. So your wife is Erica? Don't you dare say my wife's name so casually. Sorry about that. But hey, we've known each other since we were kids. It's a habit to call her by name. I don't care if it's a habit or not. I'm not weak enough to let someone call my wife by her name without doing something about it. Fair enough, I get it. So, what exactly did she tell you? Tell me? What are you getting at? She said I hit on her, but I didn't. How is that possible? I heard you've been in love with Erica ever since you were a kid. I heard you've been pestering her for years. So that's what she's been saying. Hate to break it to you, but I've never been interested in Erica. No way I'd believe that. With a beauty like her, I can't imagine a man not falling for her. Is that supposed to be bragging? Look, I don't have time for this. I get it, you're crazy about her, so step aside. Unfortunately, I can't do that. You made a move on my wife, and I can't let it slide without spilling some blood. Listen, you're getting it wrong. I've never once made a move on your wife. That's impossible. Erica clearly said you were hitting on her and causing her trouble. I held back because I thought you were just some corporate worker. But yesterday I found out you're the boss of the Sutherland family. You know as well as I do. When someone in this line of work touches what isn't theirs, it doesn't end peacefully. It's Erica's request. I have no choice but to settle this. This is ridiculous. No matter how many times I tell you it's not true, you won't believe me, will you? Of course not. No matter what happens, my wife's word is the only thing I'll trust. I see. Sounds like you're head over heels for her. Yeah, that's right. So get ready. I'm not letting you walk away from this. All right then. If talking's not going to settle this, I guess we've got no choice. I don't want trouble with the Eldon family. But if this is how it's gotta be, so be it. This is a fight between men. The families don't matter. Is that so? All right then. Bring it. I pulled my hands from my pockets and got into position. The underboss swung the steel pipe straight at me. But something like that wasn't going to take me down. I countered his charge with a powerful kick. From there, it was an even fight. We punched each other, blow for blow, fighting until we were both out of breath. But in the end, of course, I came out on top. As Jason collapsed to the ground, I landed one final punch to his face, leaving him unable to move. All right, it's over now. Damn it! The man cursed bitterly and called out Erica's name. From the shadows, the woman appeared. You were here the whole time? Erica. I'm sorry. In a drama, this would be the part where the woman rushes to her fallen man. But reality wasn't so kind. Erica looked down at him and spat. How could you lose to someone like this? You always said you were strong, that you earned the position of underboss with your own strength. And yet, you lost to a guy who only became boss because of his parents? I can't believe this. Don't say that, Erica. This guy's the real deal. Even I can't believe I lost to him. I don't want to hear your excuses. I want a strong man. How could you lose so completely? Hearing their argument, I decided this couldn't be left unresolved and called the boss of the Eldon family. He said he'd come right away. And true to his word, he arrived almost instantly. When he saw the man lying on the ground, he looked shocked. Jason. What happened to you? Boss. Why are you here? I got a call from Mr. Sutherland here, saying you were down and needed to be taken home. But I didn't expect this. I'm sorry. What the hell happened? Did you seriously attack Mr. Sutherland? I'm sorry. Do you even realize what you've done? If you make the Sutherland family our enemy, it'll be a disaster. I know that, but my wife said the boss of the Sutherland family was hitting on her, and I couldn't let that slide. The boss of the Sutherland family hit on your wife? Yeah, that's what she said. So I challenged him to a fight to defend my honor. Wait, does that even make sense? Huh? What do you mean? Mr. Sutherland, is what he's saying true? Not a chance. Back in the gang days, his wife asked me to date her, and I turned her down. That's the truth. I'm not the type to chase after a fish I already let go. That makes sense. I don't see the Sutherland family's boss having any trouble finding women. Exactly. Besides, I already have someone I've sworn to protect with my life. If I so much as looked at another woman and made her cry, I'd rather cut off my own manhood. You're kidding. But Erica said. Like I said, I wanted to explain this earlier. But you wouldn't listen to a word I said because you were too busy thinking I'd hit on your wife. Erica, what's the meaning of this? What do you mean, what's the meaning? He really did come on to me. Is that true? At first, she screamed back at her husband, saying, "Of course it's true. Don't you trust me?" I felt like my dignity was at stake. And now you don't believe me? You're the worst. But after being pressed over and over again, she finally confessed the truth. Fine, I lied. He never hit on me. You lied? What else was I supposed to do? I couldn't tell you that I fell for him as a kid and got rejected. And now I find out he's the boss of a bigger family than yours? My pride is shattered. I wanted you to beat him up for me. So, you ordered me around just to protect your pride. That's right. Isn't it a big deal? I was rejected. Me. How is that possible? I've worked so hard to maintain this beauty. And he still won't look at me. That's unforgivable. Erica. You're unbelievable. No, you're just as much of an idiot. You couldn't even see through your wife's lies. It's fine to love her, but think about who you're listening to. You're a damn fool. I'm so sorry. I just believed everything she said without questioning it. You don't think you're getting off easy, do you? No. I don't. One wrong move and this could have turned into an all-out war. Do you realize that? Your petty jealousy could have destroyed your entire family. I'm so sorry. Mr. Sutherland, I know this can't be brushed aside, but could we possibly settle this peacefully? All right. Let's settle this with money. That would be a relief. How much are we talking? Since you attacked the boss of the Sutherland family, let's say $500,000. Thank you for your generosity. You've got to be kidding me. What? $500,000? How the hell are we supposed to pay that? Am I supposed to pay it? No way. And there's no chance I'm giving that kind of money to him. Are you saying it's not enough? Shut up. $500,000 is merciful. The fact that the Eldon family isn't completely wiped out right now is the biggest blessing here. This is all your fault. You're the one who let this happen. What? Yeah. You're always bragging about how you earned your position as underboss and that no one could beat you. But you couldn't even touch him. I was humiliated as a kid because of him. Me. Everyone wants to date someone as beautiful as I am. But he rejected me just because he already had a girl. And now you want me to pay for this? That's ridiculous. Enough already. Can't you just be happy we're alive and the family's intact? Alive? I'm telling you, I've been humiliated again because of you. Do you realize what this means? The guy who embarrassed me back then is now the boss of the Sutherland family, while you're just some underboss. And you got beaten to a pulp after promising to take him down. Well, I didn't expect him to be that strong. I don't care. Weak is weak. Hey, Roy. What you did to me, I'll never forget. You shattered my pride forever. Yeah? Well, I'm sorry about that, but that's got nothing to do with this. Exactly. All right, Jason. Go get that $500,000 right now. Otherwise, it's your life on the line. Yes, sir. I'll make Erica pay the full amount. Why me? You're the one who lost the fight. Why should I pay for this? Take her to one of our family's businesses and let her work off $500,000. I'm begging you. Are you sure about that? She's your wife. At this point, I've had enough. She doesn't know her place, and I've run out of patience. Put her in one of the shops. At least there. The men will dote on her, and she'll finally be satisfied. True enough. She's a beauty. She's getting older, but she can earn $500,000 pretty quickly. All right, I'll arrange it. Mr. Sutherland, is that acceptable? Yeah, that works for me. You've got to be kidding me. Why should I have to do this? This is insane. Despite her protests, Erica was taken to one of the Eldon family's massage parlors to work off the debt. From what I've heard, she's been very popular. Her beauty draws in customers, and her high and mighty attitude attracts men who enjoy knocking her off her throne. As for her husband, Jason, he looked utterly crushed when he found out. But since he agreed to it, there was nothing he could do. Still, as valuable as she might be now, there'll come a day when her demand fades. And when that day comes, she'll inevitably return. Everyone thought so. 5 years passed. By then, at the age of 50 and worn down by a harsh lifestyle, Erica's skin had aged, and her value as a product had plummeted. Word came that she was being let go. So that means Erica will be coming back soon, right? Unable to hide his joy, Jason reportedly counted the days until her return. However, the next piece of news shattered him completely. Hey, Jason. About your wife. She fell ill just before she was about to finish paying off the debt. So, Erica. Sorry, but she's passed on to the next world. No, it can't be. Devastated, the man now spends his days at her grave, tormented by regret.